Ahoy hoy, and welcome to an emergency bonus action.
I don't
You
have a
know,
wee woo sound,
you
so
know,
sorry.
we had a few complications and decided that it would be best to just sit down. Well, we haven't had time to sit down and just talk about the game in a really long time. We thought it would be a really good time for that. Plus, it's about time on a schedule. What's it supposed to be like? Normally, it's the last week of the month, but we went ahead and we had last week. Things got a little weird, so
Yeah.
we'll do this first week of the month. It's fine.
Everybody is
Um,
okay, but there was a
yes.
router issue. The router is not okay, but
Yeah.
everybody's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people are just tired. That's also fine.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna go over the credits. You probably won't see most of this or hear most of this, but it's still useful. Cartography by Shay and Peku. Cartography by Shay and Peku Sci-Fi. Maps by Lake Stratton. Maps by Eightfold Paper. Music by Tabletop Audio. Character tokens by Greek 46. Custom tokens by Shay and Peku Tokens. Overlay art by Packstream. Custom world map by by Freckles Sketches. And logo by Luke McKay.
It's right down there. Yay. I in the Katie role will be thanking Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms for coming on by. Idle Champions is a strategy management game from with characters from all over the multiverse. I have a character on there, Orkira Eldrex, a Dragonborn cleric of the Phoenix, who has been there for a while, and you might like her. And if you'd like gear for her, you should use the code that's in the bottom corner over there. Tame SARS Kelp. There you go. That's as close as I'm going to get to saying it. Also, you can put exclamation mark code into the chat and you can get that for an easy copy pasta into your game. Also, if you need closed captions for this, you can turn them on. If you just on Twitch, just turn on closed captions. They should appear on your screen. You can move them around. You can change the size and the shape of them. And that works on mobile as well. So sometimes I forget to tell people about that because it's hard to remember that. I was the reason I was looking down is I was just making sure that they were on because sometimes it's like, are they on? So yes, if you need closed captions, they are currently on and working. Also, you can see. I mean, most people like the black with the white because it's very readable, but there are a couple of color combinations that are weird. So, take a look, see what you like.
Have some fun.
Yeah, have some fun. I think that's all I have to say.
Do you have anything you want to that's going on with you? You want to promote real quick before we
Sure. So before this stream, in the morning on the Dungeon Scrawlers Twitch channel, remember that Dragonborn cleric I was talking about, Orkira Eldrex? Well, she is currently playing through Baldur's Gate 3. So that's what I was doing just a couple of hours ago. We've made it to Act 3, and things are fun. I'm romancing Karlach and it's getting sweet and
Aw.
yeah. And
It
also
gets
very, very interesting because like I've played through the game before. I know a lot of the stuff. So it is a spoiler filled stream. So if you ever come on by, you're welcome to give suggestions. I might not take them. And so we're getting into the hard moments of trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Karlach at the end of the game because she has a complicated romance. So that happens. So Sundays are usually very full of streams for me. And then Fridays, if you would like to see me play a different Dragonborn, I'm on the Crit Hit Chronicles channel at 5 o'clock Pacific, where we're doing another Baldur's Gate thing. That is Shadows over Baldur's Gate, which is canonically happening after the events of Baldur's Gate 3, and where a bunch of us are trying to figure out a new threat that is terrorizing the Sword Coast. We're currently in Elturel, where we're trying to hunt down a bunch of cultists of Tiamat, and right now the way we're doing it is we're looking for Halsin, who is apparently very upset because the love of his life and two of his friends have gone to hell and he didn't go with them. Gee, I wonder who those people might be. And my character
Wow.
there is completely different than the other two. If you want to see me being a problem child, that's where you can go. And in between those, I am the community and social media manager for WizKids. So if you would like to see the Potato Head Beholder that we just talked about, go watch us at WizKids.
And I also want to say thank you to our moderators, Billith and Strike Red Kite. Thank you very much for that. I don't have a whole lot going on, but I do have my start playing game that I'm still trying to fill up. It now has 2 players, and that's actually was my threshold for starting. Um, but we have a max of possibly 4 players. We also rescheduled it from Fridays to Tuesdays to better accommodate
Hmm.
people's scheduling. So if you're wanting to look into that, I believe it's exclamation point CIMM game, all one word in chat. We'll give you the start playing link. So, oh boy. I named this last episode Amidships because I realized you guys spent the entire time on the ship just talking about stuff.
I mean, we had a lot to talk about.
It's true. It's true. You had a lot to talk about. Plus, you had this new guy that I had to come up with on the spot and then fully flesh out for you guys. Oh, man.
Yeah, yeah. We picked up a stray who's not a stray, and then realized he's not a stray, and then, yeah.
And yeah.
The moment Fairlos realized, no, he can't be a stray. This has been the show of existential crises, which we like to joke about, but she had a very like small internal one right there because like she had spent a good amount of the last 2 episodes, as it were, like calmly trying to make sure that this very nice dwarf was shuffled off to safety and a good life. And then, oh wait, he's got a book.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, and
right.
that was born out of the clear wants of, and obviously I know you as a player have different wants than your character, but that was the clear wants of the other characters and players to like they wanted him to stick around. So I was
Yeah.
like, I guess I gotta give good justification for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lauren kind of wanted him to stick around too, but
Yeah,
like, it was definitely one of those in where Lauren and Fairlos disagreed, but Fairlos had some pretty reasonable reasons, I think.
it's for
Um,
sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
trust this guy. He's a dwarf from the people that you're fighting. How do you know you can trust him? And like he's eavesdropping in on things naturally without even trying. What kind of bullshit is that? Totally unfair.
And even beyond all of that, like even if you get past those trust issues, the whole fact of the matter of like we are trying to keep this all
Mhm.
secret. Like we didn't even want our own friends that we've known for 4 years on the boat with us, and
Yeah.
now we want this guy. Like we've barely told my brother, and now we want this guy. So yeah, like there were some good reasons, but
Yeah.
you gotta there's things you gotta balance. So
And I'm also playing around with the idea like I don't mind having a bunch of like I don't want you guys to have a retinue of NPCs following you around because then it takes away sometimes. I mean like your guy when you guys were in combat with the puppets, right?
mhm.
I just pretended like the other guys were asleep, but like there were 4 other people on that boat that could have been helping you out considerably more than they were. And it didn't really make much narrative sense for them not to, but it also would have really wrecked both in counterbalance and sort of like y'all's sense of accomplishment and or involvement in the plot to have 4 other equally essentially equal. They're all, some of them are stat blocks, but people who can help you. Monsters are actually and actually that's worse because stat blocks are more powerful than characters. But
Sometimes, yeah. Well,
yeah.
and like on the opposite side, the last thing we want you to have to do, like
Mm.
the joke is, it's funny to listen to the DM have to talk to themselves, and it happens. Like I, as a DM
Oh,
myself, I've had to talk to myself before, but I think everyone wants to avoid that as much as possible. Partially because like it's just not fun for anyone because as a DM you want to interact with the players. As players you either want to interact with each other or the DM. And once you as yourself are talking to yourself, it's like, well, if I want to talk to myself, I'll just come over here.
yeah, it's
If I
it's one of
wanted
those
to
things.
play a solo game, I got solo
It
games I
really,
can go
yeah,
play.
it's like I don't want you guys to be watching me play D&D. That's not the point.
And so, yeah,
Um,
like that balancing act of NPCs versus what makes sense for. And so, yeah, like sometimes you just have to shrug and go, it's a game, and this is the type of game it is.
but then
Um,
I basically was like Furloughs or not Furloughs. Fro is like, hey, I'm gonna go do this opportunity, take this opportunity that was just presented in
yeah.
front of me. Is that cool? And then that allows me, like, I don't mind, like, having one person follow you around. That's very easy to manage, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can always manage that well. But having you guys wanted to collect more people, and part of that was my fault actually, because I'm the one that told you guys needed a crew on your ship, and then you guys went on the trip, and I was like, "Ooh, the crew was a bad idea." I was thinking to myself, I was like, "The crew is a bad idea. How do I solve this? I'm going to upgrade their ship in such a way as they don't need a crew for their off times."
Well, and now, like, up until new guy came along,
Mhm.
Fro was the perfect
Mhm.
NPC to have along because now when we go places, it makes sense to leave at least one person on the ship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So having one person we trust to stay with the ship who can pilot the ship and everything, like, great, go off, have fun. But also now we got someone else, and it makes sense also for him to be off on another ship. I can contact him easily. Like, it's all like, as long as it kind of makes sense, then we can make those decisions that not just make sense in the moment, but what makes the most sense for this game.
Yeah.
And then the challenge becomes sometimes players don't recognize the decision you need to make for the game, because sometimes some of us are more oblivious than others. Some of us, it happens, and then afterwards you have to, or even in the chat, in the backstage chat, it has to be like, Lauren, let them go. Oh, okay.
I've come around to the idea. I did this a lot less in my home games, but because this is a show, I feel a lot more comfortable sometimes, literally just being, instead of hinting or trying to create the circumstances. A good example. I'm going to use the example that has just come up because I got it at the top of my notes. Tell players I'm trying to get them to physically go to the Isle Dale, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Which is something I'm going to make sure and remember for when we actually get everyone together before the next game. But it was, I mean, what I did was I gave you guys the perfect setup to do this job, right? Because you
Hmm.
guys have a ship that is unnaturally fast, unnaturally durable, and you just got a dude who can cloak your ship,
Yep.
make it invisible,
And we had
and you were give,
someone invite us to come
yeah,
do the thing.
yeah. So they invite you to come and carry food through a blockade. You are perfectly situated to do so. And then I heard the players going, "All right, so we need to figure out a way to not actually have to go to that island." And I was like, fuck.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I just put in my notes at the top, it's like, before next game, tell players I'm trying to get them to go to the Isle de. Like, I did everything. I feel like I did everything I
Oh,
could
yeah.
to get you guys to it. But at some point, as a DM, you have to recognize it didn't work, and if you don't communicate, you can't get mad when the players go off the beaten path.
And sometimes as a DM, you can do all right, I'm just going to take the thing that you were going to
Yeah,
have over here and move it. And sometimes,
absolutely.
and sometimes they're going off to go do something else you're going to do anyway. And there's sometimes
Yeah.
that's fine. And then sometimes it's not. And yeah, I've learned the same thing doing streams as well, that sometimes it's okay to remember that as a game and you're playing together and it's improv, that you can just turn to everybody and not just like that kind of thing of like, hey, the story says go here, both I'm making it up, but like if you're running one of and I'm pointing there like you can see anything, if you're running a book, if you're running a pre-planned
Yeah.
campaign, if you're running Storm King's Thunder, if you're running Curse of Strahd, um, it's okay for the DM if your players have decided to go off the rails. It's often not because they're like, ooh, evil players who've gone off the rails. Like they don't know what the
They think
where
they know what they think they know what you want, and most of the time they're trying to do it.
yeah, or they, even if they don't know what you want, they're
Yeah.
just trying to have fun. They
Yeah.
think they know what they're doing whatever. And if you need to just stop them and be like, hey guys, I actually don't have anything planned for that.
Hey,
Can we go
this
in
is
this
one of
direction instead? Like they'd rather have fun playing in the place that you're prepared for. So,
I always throw in that, and the clarity for that is tell players I'm trying to get them to go to the El de Hombres, but also the caveat will be, and if you guys really don't want to go, that's okay. I will figure it out, but I'm telling you what I want.
well, and what
'Cause if
helped in that when we talked about it afterwards was you dropped a piece of information that we all that at least for me I went, "Oh, make sure we find once Fairlos knows about that, that will change her mind because like it was and I don't want to say what it is so that it'll come up in game, but there was one piece of information that will change the reason to go for her because all the other
Hmm.
things that were coming up were reasons not to go. And so
You might need to remind me of what that thing is actually. Trying to remember off the top of my head, and I'm like, what was that? I do vaguely recall that conversation.
I'll tell
Oof,
you.
but I
I'll
don't.
I'll tell you after we're
Yeah.
done. But yes, there was one specific thing that as soon as you were like, yeah, that's kind of what I was aiming towards, and it all totally made sense. And then you said one other
Oh, I do
thing.
know. I do know now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hit me.
And
Sorry.
as soon as you said it, I was just like, oh, as soon as we know that, perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, sometimes it's like that. It's a whoopsie, and you might have said that in the game. It might have come up in the
It had that
conversation.
that topic did, in fact. So it wouldn't be spoilers to say it out loud, actually, because it's
Okay.
actually kind of in the game.
None of us caught that at least one of the books we need is on the island.
Well, not on the island, but
In the
it's
library.
in the
It's
library of the Royal Library of Brescia. And I don't know if that exact level of detail was given, but Brescia took a book,
we knew
right?
Brescia took a book, and then it was something about in the
Yeah,
conversation of like, oh, doing this thing
yeah,
isn't just going to help the revolution, it's going to help us get a book. Like,
yeah.
we
Because
hadn't
if
put
Brescia
those
has the
dots
book,
together.
yeah, it's like it's a step by step thing.
Yeah.
You go here to deliver food to these people. You meet the leaders of the revolution. The leaders of the revolution will probably have additional tasks for you to go and do. If the revolution succeeds, you're in with the leaders of Brescia now. Then you will be able to find out where and or gain access to where the books are and so on. It's the progression that's the progression in my head that I plotted out. Now, if you guys go off the beaten path, I will figure it out. But it doesn't hurt for me to go, this is what I thought would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we didn't connect those dots. We saw, oh, we should help these people because we are totally behind their cause. But we got to go over here. This is
What's a
important, but we got it's I'm going to go back to playing Baldur's Gate 3. There's something fun about how there's like 3 billion little side quests that come up,
It's
especially
why
in the
I never
city.
get out of it's why I never get out of Act One.
Yeah. And it gets I'm not gonna say worse, but like there's more and more and more the further
Yeah,
on
it
you.
spiders out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you get into the city, it gets even more dense and so many more that some of them don't even have anything to do with what's going on. And I appreciate that on a regular basis, Larian includes dialogue trees and dialogue moments that are literally your character going, I have more important things to do. I have bigger fish to fry,
Yeah.
as at least a nod to the fact of like, I cannot help you find these letters. I'm trying to save the world.
Yeah.
But that's part of playing D&D.
That's also why that exact thing we're talking about there, like the things that get missed
Mm-hmm.
is I've talked about this before in bonus actions actually, but as a DM, I love having at least one, usually one NPC around the players on a regular basis. Because if you guys miss something that I think is obvious, the NPC can point it out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I be like, well, didn't you say the books were like, didn't someone like if you guys talk to Whitaker, he'll probably be like, didn't you guys say that the Brescians stole a book? Wouldn't it be a good idea to get in good with somebody in the Brescian government and blah 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 blah? And that will immediately be enough for you guys to work off of. Or that's different because you guys are gonna probably go talk to Whitaker before you guys leave anyway. But like having an NPC around the players at all times does give you that opportunity as long as you don't over abuse it. I always
Yeah.
say keep an NPC around the players at all times, but they should almost always be faded into the background. And then like every once in a while, or when the player like when the players need it or ask for it, you can bring them into the fore, but then they fade back into the background afterwards. Um, And yeah, but I haven't gotten out of Act One in Baldur's Gate. I'm gonna start replaying it. I'm waiting for Blade Singers to come out because it's my favorite class subclass combination.
Oh yeah, they're
I
fun.
I really would. I was thinking about that. I actually wanted to talk about this because you were talking about Baldur's Gate 3. I it boggles my mind that they don't have an Aberrant Mind sorcerer subclass. It seems it seems like the perfect fit
Yeah.
for Baldur's Gate 3, and that they didn't, it's not included in this patch either. And I could be wrong, but I doubt there's going to be additional like content to this level past this point. Probably.
Probably not, considering how much they're like,
Yeah.
and we're done.
Yeah.
I can make a wild guess based on what subclasses were in there and what's in this patch. They were probably focusing a bit on the stuff that we're being focused on for the 2024 subclasses.
That's a good point. Well, I mean, Aberrant Sorcery is one of the 2024
That's
subclasses.
true, but yeah, I don't know.
It feels like maybe it's too much of a fit. I mean, it could be like
I
if you
mean,
had you would have to do a lot of extra work for that too, because you'd be integrating it into the storyline in ways that none of the other classes really are. So maybe that's why they just avoided it.
it's only integration if you assume that your aberrant mind
Yeah,
is an
you could have
illithid,
been empowered before yeah, no, that'd be funny.
right?
Um,
You
you've
show
been
up on the ship
yeah,
as a level 1 something,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
your patron at that point could be super pissed that
I
you
mean,
know.
it does, well, yeah, and there would be a reasonable implication that somehow the illithid stuff is what empowered you. And the idea is, of course, yeah, you're right, because the idea is that you've come here already as something, and that's always that I think every class has some conversation topics on that point. So yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it would be hard, but man, it's probably either my favorite or second favorite subclass. I was like, when I saw Baldur's Gate 3's like premise, I was like, oh, well, of course they're going to have the aberrant minds. And
You
then
know
they
what they should
didn't.
do one of these days? Add it,
There'll be a mod.
except the either the aberrant mind or they should make it your warlock patron at some point is the narrator,
That would be really good.
because she speaks to you so much, sometimes like directly to you,
Yeah.
and like at you, not she's the voice in your head. She is speaking at you and to you. That
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that hard, and it'd be fun.
That would be
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I don't have any real interest in playing Dark Urge, just because that kind of playstyle doesn't like, and going into that territory, except heard enough of the voice lines to be at least impressed with the how
Yeah.
that narrator works. So,
I could maybe see it. Well, I definitely couldn't do the Dark Urge, like embrace the Dark Urge storyline. I just can't. I don't know how familiar are you with Fallout New Vegas?
uh,
Yeah,
I never got a chance to
audience for
play it, but
sure.
I played a bunch of Fallout 3 and 4.
Fallout New Vegas is one of those games where like every character in it is like feels like a real person almost to some degree. Like they're very deep characters. I can never do an evil playthrough of Fallout New Vegas.
Hmm.
I get through the very first I'm not going to dark-sided quest. I'm trying to think of the right terminology for this, but the very first like Legion aligned quest, and I end up killing like the lady who does the tutorial and the north and other stuff. And then I looked down at him. I did it once. I looked down at the body and was like, "No, nah, I'm starting over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna do the good side again." A good game should make me not want to do the evil playthrough. That's just I feel like that's true. And if you like, I'm not saying that you're wrong if you like to do evil playthroughs of games. Everybody's different, but it just ain't for me.
Yeah.
And Dark Urge though, like even when you're trying to do a good side, if there's stuff that happens that you don't control,
Yep.
and I don't know how I feel about that in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think that's for me. But yeah, no,
Yeah, there's a fair bit of buy-in when you pick Dark Urge, that's for
yeah.
sure. You're
You know what you're
signing up for
getting.
it.
You do. It's not like they surprise you or anything. You know what you're getting when you get into it. So
Yeah, I guess. I think they surprise you, but yeah. Yeah.
well, yeah, they do surprise you.
Hmm.
That's like part of the whole point of the thing. But it's not to the degree of like I didn't know this was possible necessarily, but more like, oh God, that
I mean, let's remember, how many weeks before the game came out that intimate scene with Halson dropped?
oh right. Yeah.
They did that on purpose. They knew. They knew. Now, the fun part of the internet and the fan base were just like, "Yay! Ooh, look like that." But like there were a fair number of people who saw that and went, "Oh, this is an adult game." Oh, okay.
And also, there's a lot more freedom of choice than I originally thought, I think. I
Mhm.
mean, you get that a lot with like really, really good media that people kind of dismissed. I actually bought Baldur's Gate 3 2 years before it released to full access.
Mhm.
And I remember playing it a little bit and being like, it's fine. Uh, even though and I played it a little bit. I was like, that's all right. Like, I think I got up to maybe to the front door of the Grove. That was what it was, and did that battle. And I was like, all right, I guess it's all right. It's cool or whatever. And then I stopped playing and didn't come back to it. And then everyone was raving about it, and I was like, oh crap! I had forgotten that I owned it. That's how long ago it had been. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, I already own this game. Well, that saves me about $60 or whatever, however much it was.
Yeah.
And then I got into it, and I was just like, the thing isn't that I can't get out of Act One, because I absolutely could get out of Act One if I wanted to, but there's so many diverging paths
Mhm.
that sometimes I'll do it with if I wish the game loaded faster, like you could load your save games faster,
Mm.
because I would be like, I want to see what every single dialogue option goes through,
Oh.
right?
Oh,
And
jeez.
like
Yeah.
that's that's for one conversation because of how long I mean, I don't know, maybe it's probably not just my computer. I think everyone has it takes a little bit longer to load the save games because it's such a big game. But
Mm.
yeah, I would probably be like, select that, go through the whole dialogue tree. All right, exit out, load up, see you go all through the dialogue tree, and then at the end of it be like, all right, which of those did I like best? This is the path I'd like to go down. And that's I'm very much a like test and poke and prod at games kind of person.
Yeah.
And there's so much to poke and prod at in Baldur's Gate 3, again, Act 1, that I'm get to the end of Act 1 and I'm like, I kind of want to do that again, but do it completely differently.
And you can. And I mean, I can tell you, um, so because of my job before the game fully released, I was spoiled on a bunch of stuff because
Mhm.
back when I was still working at Idle Champions, we were preparing to release all the core characters in the game.
Mhm.
So it was mostly the core character storyline. I was spoiled on a lot of stuff leading up to the release of the game because I was writing the blogs for stuff and I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. I remember having the discussion of like, can we talk and include that Astarion is a vampire? And it's like, well, if you go to their website, it lists he's a vampire. If you boot up the game and start to play as Astarion, he's like, I'm a vampire. So, like, yes, it's a joke in the beginning of the game. Um,
Oh
and
yeah, like the idea that he's the only sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you,
it's
but the
okay.
only reason you could possibly think he's not a vampire is he's out in the middle of the sunlight, right?
Yeah,
Like everything else about him, even from his character introduction, obviously he's
he's
a
a vampire.
vampire.
So, like, I'd been spoiled on a bunch of things before the game came out. And then over the past, it's been out for what, 2 years now?
I think it would be 2 years this August, or
Yeah.
was it last August?
Oh, it's several years. It has been out.
Yes.
And I've played through a bunch of it. I played through a bunch of it with my partner, and I've watched a bunch of people play through it, watching them play through in batches. And what's amazing about it is how different all of it is because of choices people have made, because of dialogue trees and everything. Um, and so that's why part of the fun of my playthrough on the stream has been letting people be okay with spoiling things because it's fun to hear like not just their experiences but like, hey, have you tried this? And part of the contract I have with chat is you're more than welcome to make suggestions, but you got to be nice if I say no. So now the game's been out for like 2 years and people have done everything and all the, blah, 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 blah. After all of that, on a semi-regular basis, I come across stuff I've never experienced before. It just happened this morning. And people in chat who've played through it a ton of times, who've watched people play through it, they are like, I've never seen that dialogue happen. I've never seen someone resolve this that way. Because there's so much interconnectedness. Like literally a thing happened this morning that I thought the game had bugged because I'd never seen it before. And I'm like, I think something's gone wrong. This character's just gone. Where did this NPC go? And then like 10 minutes later, discovered where they were, and it was, no, they'd just kind of gone about their lives, and this thing happened. It totally made sense. I'm like, I've never seen that before. This is amazing.
The moment for Baldur's Gate 3 for me was I started playing the game normal, I think I created a bard first or whatever. Got into the Grove, saw the storyline, did the natural thing that I've been doing with Baldur's Gate 3 and restarted the game. And then I thought about it and I was like, I wonder if there are unique dialogue options if I play a tiefling druid.
Yeah.
And this is like my second or third playthrough of Act 1. To just be clear, because I again never get out of Act 1. And I did it, and yes, there were many unique dialogue options in the Grove for a tiefling druid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, huh. That's the kind of attention to detail that just other games don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the kind of thing that you would normally expect, and this is the reason why I think it's like this more than anything else. It's kind of detail you would expect out of a decent to good DM at an actual D&D game. To be able to adjust to that and to not just go by the book and be like, this is the story that we were working on. This is my story. I could have wrote a novel, but instead I'm making you play through sort of deal. Like, no, it's like you come in with a tiefling druid, and so you have unique dialogue options to be like, hey, this is fucked.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me respect the game even more when you do come across the few things where there was no way that they could make it work the same way it would in the game. And it's usually like the way that mechanics and spells work. I was talking with my chat this morning specifically about a couple of very specific spells that are either not in the game or the way they work in the game don't work nearly as well because the way they work really require you and the DM to work together to make them cool. Phantasmal Force. How much experience have you had with Phantasmal Force?
I'm trying to remember, Phantasmal Force is the one where it gives you an illusion, and that illusion you think is real and can actually damage you if you. Yeah, is that the one?
That's the one.
Okay.
So in the game, that's basically what it does. Is it does damage, and they can take the action to try to see if it's real, and if they don't, they take damage, which is still pretty cool. But the spell goes into in tabletop D&D goes into fairly extensive detail about how you can basically create anything. It takes root in their mind. They will come up with their mind will basically explain away any inconsistencies, and you can kind of create anything you want. So my Friday night game with my friends, my bard has this. And I've had to have good discussions with both my DM and the players, because when you start getting creative with that, so we were being attacked by some harpy-like creatures. Your requirements are it has to fit in like a 10-foot sphere or cube, and
Which is huge.
It has smell, you see it, you touch it, like it roots in the mind. The harpies are singing, and so I said, well, she's got a ball gag now. She can't sing.
That's pretty good.
And so
using it for something other than damage, I like that. Yeah.
And it's like, well, she can't figure out that it's not real, and if this is, now that takes buy-in from the DM. Because like, all right, if you want to be real, like technical about it, the only thing it's supposed to do is do damage. But like, that's what I've created and it says it's supposed to, like, it goes into a whole thing about a bridge. Like, if you say the bridge is not there and they start to cross the bridge, they'll fall down. And then,
Yeah, and they'll
like,
justify it as there being some sort of flaw in the bridge. I think I remember that in the spell description.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get creative with that, if you get real good at that, like, I started getting to the point in where we skipped an encounter or two, and then I would turn to the rest of the group and I'm like, oh, I will stop, because we had like a barbarian in the party who, like, half their fun is hitting people. So before I start pulling out Phantasmal Force, I'll just turn to everybody and be like, so how much do we want to fight these people? Because I have an idea.
There's so
So
many spells in 5e though that literally could shut down, especially non any encounter that doesn't involve legendary resistances on the part of the enemy. Like suggestion, straight up an encounter ender. If you want to get creative about Phantasmal Force, absolutely the same thing, depending on the encounter, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's
there's a lot.
that's the thing. Yeah,
There's
you
a
got to
lot of
talk to your
them.
DM and be like,
But here's the
and your party too. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, a lot, you're right, like command, suggestion, a lot of those. But there's a much higher chance of a lot of those other spells of the recipient being able to save.
Mhm.
But Phantasmal Force is an intelligence saving throw. And like characters, not a lot of monsters have a good intelligence. Yeah,
I yeah.
it's
I've
wicked. If you ever want to build a character one of these days around spells that make intelligence saving throws, and then you're going to have the talk with your DM, because you just make an overpowered character. But
yeah,
there's not
and
that
then
many. There's not that many spells for a
it's
reason.
suddenly yeah, it's suddenly you're facing nothing but wizards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now my bard, who does have a bunch of those spells in
Mhm.
actual combat, there's not much that she can do. Like, yes, she is kind of a save or suck. She's got silvery barbs and phantasmal force, and she can inspire, and that's about it. Like, she's not doing damage, she's not doing very much else. But out of combat, she's ridiculous, and she can talk down
That
anybody, and
I always talk about bards in this way. Bards are one of the best class, and I still think even in 2024 are absolutely one of the best classes in 5e,
mm,
but with a giant B at the beginning of that word. But if you approach D&D from the perspective of I need to have the character that does the most number damage,
hmm
you are going to hate the part. You're gonna hate it.
yeah,
If you want to approach it from the character that can do the most, I mean, legitimately, Jack of all trades is built into the character. You do the most both with spells and with skills and with everything else. The bard is the one.
yeah,
And I should be clear, eventually you will get access to stuff that does really good damage. Like it's so funny that uh I still think of Bigby's hand as a signature bard spell, and it's not.
hmm
It's because of Critical Role Campaign 1. It's from Magical Secrets. But if you're smart about your Magical Secrets, you can grab just a couple of very good damaging spells
yeah,
for the instances where you might need to actually hurt someone.
yep. And in fairness, I built this bard with that specifically in mind, of like, because the rest of my party, we've got a cleric who does heal, but like she's more doing damage and healing on the side. We've got a barbarian, we have a rogue, and we have a warlock. And the warlock they're a hexblade. So like, I didn't have to worry about doing damage. And so the whole concept of this character is she does oratory. She's a
Mhm.
public speaker, and she's
Is it?
she's an eloquence bard.
I was about to say, is it an
Yeah.
eloquence bard?
She's
Yeah.
an eloquence
I
bard.
love that subclass. The
They're super
bardiest of
yeah.
bards.
Yeah, and she's a furbolg from the Feywild, so she does have a little bit of that, like, I'm gonna talk you to death. Like, she can get a little nasty. So I did kind of specifically, like, I could have picked a couple, like I could have given her Thunder Wave and Shatter and a couple of low level stuff, but I very specifically kept it like, basically she vicious mocks, and that's about it. And she's got a magic item that can do some damage, but that's her bread and butter. You bring her into combat and she either shuts it down in the first round, or she's there inspiring people, and that's it. That's all. That's all she does. Oh, I have Dissonant
I mean,
Whispers too. So
Dissonant Whisper. Yeah, I like Dissonant Whispers because even when it fails, you take the half damage is still decent.
exactly.
And when it doesn't fail, and if you used it correctly, not only do you get to do some damage, but so does whoever they're standing next to.
Yeah. Oh, and I did, because we're a high enough level now, I did take Rowletham's Psychic Lance, which,
Mm.
because once again, intelligence saving throws.
There's that. There's Mind Spike,
Yeah.
Synaptic Static.
Which I don't think I got access to.
That's level 5.
Yeah.
Which is odd because I mean it's not odd because it has additional effects, but it's as damaging as a fireball, but it's 5th level, but it does other stuff besides just damage.
Yeah.
What is it like? Make your concentration checks with disadvantage and something else. I'd have to look at the spell. It's not super important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of other intelligence saving throw spells. I know Mind Spikes. That's a really good one, especially for a divination wizard. Divination, because it's technically a divination spell, and the divination wizard gets. I don't know if the 2024. I don't even know if there is a 2024 version of the divination wizard, but the divination wizard gets their refunded spell slots for using divination spells, like so they can upcast it to their highest level spell slot. Then they get the low spell slot below that back, and they can just continuously mind spike over and over and over
Which
again
is
in
nice.
combat.
All right. I've looked it up on D&D Beyond.
Oh, for synaptic static.
Well, no, specifically spells that require an intelligence saving throw.
Ah,
That was the only filter was, does it require an intelligence saving throw? It is less than 1 page. So yeah, Mind Sliver is your cantrip.
yeah.
Phantasmal Force, Tasha's Mind Whip, which
That's the one that gets rid of react. You have to choose reaction, action, or bonus action.
Oh, and
You only get
3d6
one of
psychic.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's a very good spell.
Yeah, but that's wizards and sorcerers.
Yeah.
Enemies Abound, which I've never actually seen.
I feel like that's one of the ones that just makes you think you've got people in front of you, and it's
Oh, you gotta
that
be
one
frightened. Oh yeah, you target loses the ability to distinguish friend from foe. Regards
There
all
it
creatures
is.
as seen as enemies. Each time the target takes damage, you can repeat the saving throw. Okay, so you don't necessarily do damage. Raltham Psychic Lance, Synaptic Static, Mental Prison, which is 6th level.
That one's crazy.
Yeah.
That's very similar to the spell you were just talking about. Crap. The illusion you used to put a ball gag on the hag. What was that spell
Phantasmal
again?
Force, yeah.
It's very similar to Phantasmal Force. It actually, I'm about to explain the spell. Do you know that spell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does.
For the audience's sake,
Go for it.
the spell is wild. It puts you inside like a prison that you believe is real, and if you try and go through it, you take, what is it, like 10d6 psychic or something crazy?
5d10.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I was pretty close on that. Thinking it was 10d6.
Oh no,
5d10.
here it is. If the target is moved out of the illusion, makes a melee attack through it, or reaches any part of its body through
Yep.
it, the target takes 10d10 psychic damage and the spell
10d10.
ends.
It's even crazier than I thought it was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's already 6th level. And,
Yeah.
All right, we've got 3 more to go. 8th level, Befuddlement.
That one is the
hmm.
replacement for
Feeble Mind,
right.
which is the legacy one. Which it's still
think it's-
rough. It's the same thing.
Let's see if it's any. I feel like they've changed it. I feel like there was a
On
nerf
a failed
to it, but
save, the target takes 10d12 psychic damage and can't cast spells. It's easier, but it's still bad. It can't cast spells or take the magic action. At the end of every 30 days, you can repeat the saving throw to end the effect. You can also have Greater Restoration, Heal, or Wish. So the difference is it doesn't reduce your
it no longer
scores,
reduces your
and
mental
you can
stats.
speak.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing about the spell beforehand, is it basically, because your intelligence and charisma scores become 1. You can't understand language or communicate in any way, which was just, oof. It's still bad. And then 9th level, Psychic Scream. Creatures that have
Which is Not a great spell, if memory serves, but go ahead.
Yeah, creatures that have an intelligence score of 2 or lower are unaffected. Each target makes an intelligence saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 14d6 psychic damage and is stunned, which is actually pretty good. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage as not stunned. If the target is killed by this damage, its head explodes, assuming it has one, which
Yeah.
is one of those sentences that I love D&D so much that they have to put in there. A stunned target can make an intelligence saving throw at the end of each of its turn. On a successful save, the stunned effect ends. So what's good about it is that you can keep something stunned.
Yeah, it's the stun that does it. If
Yeah.
it wasn't for that, you'd just be like, I could just upcast a fireball and get the same damage.
Yeah, so this is the and it can be up to 10 creatures of your choice. So if for
Yeah.
some reason you got like a group of really powerful creatures that you think can get to fail an intelligence saving throw, and because they can only make the save at the end of their turn, hitting them doesn't let them make the save. It's a very specific 9th level spell, but I could see a use for it. So yeah, that's it.
Well, the problem is anybody who has access to ninth level spells and can take wish would be taking wish instead of psychic scream, I would imagine.
Maybe.
But yeah.
There's an argument to be made because all the other 9th level spells that I can think of have a downside. So Wish has the obvious downsides. Unless you are taking Wish and you're using the new version
That's
of Wish, and you're
Oh,
only
well, I was
ever
gonna say
yeah. If you take
when I
the
took
new
wish
level
for
of
my, I had a
Wish,
genie warlock. I had
Yeah.
a genie warlock that had wish, and I only ever used it for 8th level spells or lower.
I was about to
Ever.
say. Well, and then you also have to use the new level of Wish, the new version, and where you don't suffer any consequences if you do that.
Well, in the old version of Wish, you didn't suffer consequences if you only used it to replicate an 8th level spell or lower. It
thought
actually
you
said it explicitly.
Oh, I thought there was still you were tired or something. There was still like a
Mm-mm.
couple of
That's if you use it for anything other anything
Yeah.
other than that. If you look up the legacy version, I'll
Oh
look it
yeah,
up
there's a
real-
ton. Listen, I got a character that's suffered from that and can't cast Wish anymore because of it. Because she
yeah.
rolled under the 33%.
I mean, it's
Um,
nice to have it, just in case you need to do something other than the spell list. But
Yep. Nope, she can't anymore.
Legacy Wish.
For
right
for those
here.
of you playing Orkira Eldrex in Idle Champions, she can never cast Wish ever again.
Yeah, here's the preface for the bottom paragraph, which is the one that involves all the negatives. The stress of casting this spell to produce any effect other than duplicating another spell weakens you. That's for the legacy version.
Okay, I thought there was something else about that was fairly minor about casting it, even with doing another spell. But
It could just have been you had a DM who it's possible maybe you in the past you had a DM who did that for you, but
maybe it was
Yeah.
from what I remember something minor. But anyway, so you can take Wish, and so let's assume you take Wish, and all you ever do is cast 8th level and lower, which is like okay, not a bad use of Wish, but still, all you're doing is casting other spells. All the other 9th level spells, or most of them that you have access to, are single target spells when you're talking about damage dealing spells.
Yeah.
That one that we
Other
just
than
talked
Meteor.
about, that's true. I didn't think about Meteor. That one is a multi target spell. Now, at levels in where you're talking about having access to 9th level spells, chances are you're focus firing because
Also-
you're Tiamat.
I was thinking of the wrong spell. The one that I don't know if they've changed it from a legacy version or not. I actually don't even know if they have a new version of it. They probably do. But the spell that I was thinking of when you said it and I said that's an awful spell is weird.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they've changed that. I don't know offhand.
I'm kind of curious that I have it open. Let's see.
Yeah.
Because it's not a very good spell. But I'm pretty sure no, it's a wisdom save too. Ugh.
Ugh.
I would have figured that'd be an intelligence save.
Yeah.
Takes 10d10 psychic damage and has the frightened condition for the duration. On a successful save, a target takes half as much damage only. I mean, 10d10 psychic damage is fine, but I think you just cast fear and get the frightened condition. That's far more valuable part of the spell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not a bad spell. It's the fact that it has to compete. It's the fact that it competes against all the other spells at that level that
Yeah.
makes it like,
At the that is not a power level I would expect out of a ninth level spell. Let's put it that way.
yeah. Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, I have strong opinions about weird, and they didn't fix it. It doesn't look because I'm reading from the normal, the now version, not the legacy version. But
I
I mean,
still wish
well,
that
I
they
look
had
at
changed guidance to the version that they had in the UA version of the 2024 when they were playing around with everything. Do you remember that version?
I don't. I because I haven't been paying
Oh,
attention close of attention to the
it
UAs.
made
What
me
did they have?
so happy. So when they were putting out basically the entire player's handbook in UA chunks, they changed guidance to be a reaction, which obviously you could still do out of combat.
Yeah.
You could do it in, I believe, it's a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. So it was still a cantrip ish, but you could do a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. You could do it, you could only do it once to a character per day. So if I had,
That's an interesting limit. Yeah.
yeah, so if I had 5 people in my party, I could only do it to each of them once per day. But then they upped the amount that, like, it went from a D4 to like a D6 or a D8.
Hmm.
So what it meant was it made guidance slightly beefier, and it got like what I always hated about guidance, both as a player and as a DM, is that whole guidance spam thing. Like I don't like using guidance. I don't like feeling like I have to use guidance if I have
Yeah.
it. I intentionally don't take guidance. I hate it. And so changing guidance that way turned it into it becomes way more useful when you use it, and then like people aren't constantly going guidance, guidance, guidance.
Well, see,
guidance.
in my games, you probably have noticed this playing in my games where you guys will roll and I'll go, "Would you like to add guidance to that?"
Yeah.
So we don't really have. I mean, every once in a while, I think someone might yell out guidance,
Yeah.
but most of the time, you guys either forget or don't, and I'm like, "So and so is present. Would you like to add a guidance to that?"
But there's a reason that's one of the reasons Fairlos does not have guidance.
I
Partially,
thought about that. Yeah, I was going to mention
partially
that. I was like, "Is that why Perilous doesn't have guidance? Because your
it's
personal opinions on it."
50% because I don't like using it, because I feel like if you're going to have it, then you end up in that position, but also because I knew there's at least one other character who had it. And it's like, okay,
Right.
well, if one other person on this team is going to have it, then at the very least, it makes sense that that it's special to them. You know, I try not to overlap spells like that anyway.
Was guidance so was the UA guidance was the reaction trigger when you see when another creature you see makes a roll and fails or something like that?
No, I think it was just when another creature makes a roll, you could, as a reaction. I mean, it's the same. It was essentially the same as it is now. When another
If you
creature,
did it where if you're going to limit the number of times it can be cast on a person per day, I feel like it would be better because you essentially but at that point you're just turning guidance into flash of God, what's the artificer
Flash of Genius,
ability?
but
Flash of Genius.
but Artificers, it's a +10.
Well, no, it's plus whatever their intelligence modifier is.
Oh, so maybe I'm just playing with high level Artificers.
Someone's got a plus 10, then they've got a 30 intelligence.
I mean, he might have. And you also got to balance it out with Bardic Inspiration.
That's fair too.
So
I think if you're going to roll a 1d6, I still feel like it would be in on par level in power. Well, I mean, it sounds like if they made it cast a proficiency per long rest sort of deal, they literally just turned it into Flash of Genius at that point, because that's how that works too.
yeah, but there's a lot
Except
of
instead of it being a definitive number, it's just a roll. And yeah, that's fine. But I don't know. I feel I don't know if there's a fix for guidance as much as it's just people that don't like it don't use it, and people that do like it use it. I think it's better to do it that way.
Probably. And when I saw that they didn't keep it, I was like, okay, maybe the couple of things that they either changed that I didn't like the change, or that they didn't change that I liked the change they were going to do, I felt like there's a good chance I'm in the minority on that side. So yeah, it's not like I'm not upset about it, but like when I I do remember for a couple of months I was playing in the Tuesday game that Jen and I used to play in, the Children of Verte, and I was a druid. I didn't have guidance. All right, I did have guidance, but because of the game that we were playing and where we were humans figuring out that we were special, I had a reason to not know I had guidance. So I took it so that when I used it, I had like an excuse to not know I had it for a very long time. When the UA came out, I asked if we could use that version of guidance because I'm like, this feels more balanced. This feels like I can take it and use it, and now I don't feel like I'm spamming it, and now it feels like it's useful. So, but
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit like my opinions. A lot of 2024 D&D, from the Dungeon Master's Guide to the Player's Handbook, feels like they felt like maybe they were tilted, and maybe this is just power creep that they're trying to combat,
oh
but they
sure.
felt like they were sure that the game was tilting too much towards the players, and they like pushed it back towards the DM side for stuff. I don't know. Limiting limiting guidance would be another extreme example of doing that. It's the reason why I don't like the new counter spell, because it's just like it becomes nearly useless for players to use it because of the Constitution saving throw. Anyone you're going to want to counter spell is probably going to either succeed on that Constitution saving throw or legendary resist and automatically succeed on their Constitution saving throw.
It's an interesting. I go back and forth with the new counterspell because I I agree with you, but also because of the fact that if you counterspell and they succeed, you don't lose the spell slot. I do think that's a fairly good.
And because monsters don't use the new monsters don't use spell slots at all now, they do lose the usage of it, I believe, if you counterspell it and you succeed.
If you
I
su-
believe they
Yeah, if you succeed, then it's just like
yeah.
you've cast counterspell. And so I think then the idea
That's a
is
bit balanced. That does help with the balance for it too.
yeah.
But like I said, the vast majority of the times you're going to want to use counter. Like one of again, I don't want to dial back to this, but like Critical Role season 1, right? The
Mhm.
very end of it. I don't know how familiar you are
Oh,
exactly
you're
because
going to talk
I've
about
talked about it a lot.
the here, spoiler alert
Multiple
everybody.
times,
The Vecna
right?
fight, yeah.
There's multiple times. I was just going to say at the very end of the series, both before that fight and then like 5 to 10 episodes earlier when they need to escape because they're about to die.
Yeah.
And there's like a teleport counterspell chain that goes off, and that's basically not going to that would have been impossible under the current rules because Vecna would have just been like, no, I automatically succeed
Mhm.
uh, because it's legendary resistance. Of course, Vecna's going to have a legendary resistance,
Yeah.
and everything goes to crap. So I love that. I love it. I may be a very much in the minority as a DM. I love it when players throw me for a loop and meddle with the way I think things are going to go.
No,
And when I cast a spell and they counterspell me, I'm like, I like it. I want more of that.
I don't. You listen. You're at the very least not in the minority on this call,
Yeah.
and yeah, as a DM, we are very well aware of what our players can do, and so we know if we go into a battle, what our players have at their disposal, and at the very least, who has counterspell, and if our creatures are coming to the table with spells, like that's the one of the easier things to predict in my opinion. But I 100% agree with you that like I want those moments of that holy shit you did what? Okay. All right. Sure. Let's go with this. I don't know. Well, like I said, that new counter spell I go back and forth on it about like
Well, it's counterspell was always counterable by the DM if they were paying attention and they did they oh well I'm sorry, the person is casting a spell and they're 60 feet away. Sorry, your counterspell can't be done.
I'll be honest. For me, it felt more like this had nothing to do with, or not nothing. This had less to do with the actual mechanics of,
Yeah.
and more to do with you're a wizard, you have to take counterspell. Like that's what it
There's
felt like to
also
me.
there's also I think there's a good argument to be made for lowering the complexity of combat too,
There's
right?
that. Yeah.
Because what they're doing now is they're basically turning it into a saving throw like that, instead of this weird sort of like completely independent, isolated mechanic of what's the level of the spell you cast, what's the level of the counter spell you cast.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll an ability check, not
Yeah.
and a whole
Because
thing.
that also kind of invites it basically invites metagaming, right? Because
To some degree, yeah.
if
You're like, I
you
know that spell, I know that level of that spell. I cast my counter spell at seventh level, so that way I don't have to roll for it.
yeah. And while I don't
Or
mind the whole I'm a wizard who would be smart enough to recognize, and that's how you figure out like I don't think that's really metagaming, but like basically that kind of it invites it and now it's just the whole thing. But I really do think that that's one of the main reasons they were trying to do that change to make it so that wizard players didn't feel like it was required
right.
acquiring.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with I'm going to go back to it because it's one of the examples I think most people will know about when we talk about the end of campaign one's critical role. When they use counterspell in that way, it's not even being used to its fullest extent because Sam Riegel's character Scanlan has access to Wish, which means he could have cast Glibness on himself.
Mm-hmm.
And since every counterspell is a charisma check, starting with a 15 plus whatever his bonuses are is an automatic success on every counter spell, no matter what level you cast it at. So it's not even
True, but we find out at the end why he was
right.
saving that wish, which
He
is
saved the wish for that. Yeah,
heartbreaking,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
which is a beautiful
But
moment. So
yeah.
I'm
Because but if he had, well, yeah, there's that also. But if he had have done that, they they would have not. That battle would have gone significantly smoother as well, and there would have been less risk of anyone dying.
maybe
Other than the person. But it's one of those things where it's like that's the idealized use of counterspell in my mind. I want players to come up with, I always like it when players come up with clever usage of their spells in that way. Um
I'm
and
just
I don't
looking
know.
real quick through chat while you're talking, but I am listening.
Oh, fair enough. I was gonna say pretty soon I'd like to ask Chad if they have any questions about our game or DMing in general.
Yeah, we got into
Uh
a very roundabout discussion. So if you have questions, put them in
hey
chat right
man,
now.
I like having somebody to talk to about rules in the game and stuff. I mean, I was creating a build very recently, which is a Goliath warlock that takes Pact of the Tome in order to acquire the spell Ray of Frost. Under the 2024 rules, Pact of the Tome spells, anything you choose becomes a warlock spell.
Oh
And more
yeah.
importantly, under 2024 rules, the Eldritch invocations that used to only apply to Eldritch Blast apply to any of your cantrips that damage and are warlock spells.
Oh, nice.
Ray of Frost plus say the lethargy one, the one that lowers their speed by 10, the one that knocks them back by 10, and so on. You can do some really. Somebody came to me with like, I want to know, does the Goliath's racial ability, they have a thing where they can choose to do cold damage that also reduces somebody's movement by 10.
Does
And they
that
came to me and were like,
stack?
does
Oh.
that they asked me, does that stack with a longbow's slow ability? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with that. But then it made me think, I was like, I could do so much better than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk about a character that can move a character back 10 feet and reduce their speed by 30 feet. I believe 40 feet if you use the Goliath ability on top of everything else. Um, yeah, that'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah, you do that to the right melee monster, and that's
Yeah.
poof.
But like
Um,
I come up with them. I don't get to play games. I don't actually get to play D&D, so I just come up with characters. You're like, that would be so much fun to play though.
I went through that for many, many, many years. It's only been it's been actually a while now, but for a while I was what I thought was a forever DM. I've been very lucky more recently to play, so hopefully you will get your chance as well. Uh,
I'm playing in a game, hopefully, right
mm,
now. And I got to play. I decided I was going to go with my Aberrant Mind because this is one of my favorite subclasses, and I love my character concept. I'm going to throw it out to the chat and for everybody else. Sorry. So it's an elvish dude who lived over like some sort of deep the an opening into the Underdark, and there's an invasion that's being planned by the mind flayers and the whatever. And so they send up some intellect devourers to do a little scouting and taking over and doing some and creating some spies. Only this one intellect devourer is completely flawed. And when it takes over the dude, it takes on too much of the dude's personality. And now there's a dude with an intellect devourer for a brain walking around feeling extremely guilty because he's just killed this man who has a family, a wife, and kids.
Oh. Oh
And
no.
so and so he decides he's just gonna one warn the local constables about the invasion and then fuck off into the night and become an adventurer to help people to try and earn the life he's been given.
That's awesome.
Which also gives me an opportunity to play somebody with a fairly tragic sort of backstory, but also he's just a fun guy because
Yeah.
like he's got why be dour? He's gifted a life that like this. He's gonna be fun and boisterous and enjoy himself because might as well somebody might as well enjoy this life. But
I
yeah, I like
I love that you've taken what the tragic backstory and made it fun or made it a happy thing because like um so my Friday character
mhm,
is in a way a classic tragic amnesia backstory.
mhm,
Because the TLDR is she's from the Feywild and her speciality is she goes back and forth to the material plane on missions
right.
by
This is a
from
Furbolg.
no, this is my streamed character. I'm sorry. So
Oh,
this
a
is
different. Sorry.
the Dragonborn that I play on the Friday game.
Gotcha, gotcha,
And
gotcha.
so what she's done her whole life is she gets sent on missions to the material plane to go do stuff and then comes back. Well,
Mm.
because when you do that, there's a non-zero chance that whole chunks of your memory get gone. And there may be some other things going on, but whole chunks of your memory. So she has whole big holes in her memory. She does not remember most of her childhood. She doesn't remember whole big chunks of her life. She views that as a blessing because that she's basically the walking, talking equivalent of, gee, I wish I could forget that I saw this movie so that I could watch it again for the first time. She loves life and learning new things and seeing new things, even awful things, even horrific things, because new experiences.
I
Um,
like that.
okay, let us
Oh, it's
go
chat.
through chat. Paul V. Men says, I prefer the swords or valor bards. Those are fun. Sword bards.
They are fun.
Sword bards,
Valor
so
Bard,
fun.
Valor Bard is the superior of the two. I'm always thinking in terms of mechanics. I hate that I do that, but Valor Bard is the superior of the two. But they're both lots of fun to play. Bard in any Bard is good. There's no bad Bard subclass.
Yeah,
There are just better or worse subclasses mechanically. And the core, it's one of those classes. It's like Druid. The core class is so good that it doesn't really matter if you're unless you got going for something specific. It doesn't really matter what your subclass is. You're gonna have fun with that class.
exactly. And
It's
they
not
go
like
on.
Ranger. It's not like Ranger.
I mean,
Ranger's not like that.
listen, my that exact Dragonborn that I'm playing on that Friday game with holes in her memory is a ranger, so she's a Fey wanderer, and yeah,
That's a fun subclass, though. I like that one.
it's a lot of fun. And I might be moving her to the 2024 rules, which will give her a
Mm,
little boost in a couple things. And yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Paul
The
goes on to
the
say, though I do play a bard who vicious mockery a goblin to his demise. Yeah, gotta love
I'm
having.
still waiting for Vicious Mockery to kill something in one of my games. I don't think it's happened yet, but I'm waiting for it. I want it to happen.
Tula's gonna kill somebody by
With
talking
a
them to
Vicious
death.
Mockery.
She's gonna
Yeah.
do it. It's gonna happen. Cassie335 says, if you want Orkira to hate you for all time, wish for Orkira to be able to cast Wish again. Could that? Oh,
That's a great yeah, I so it does that. I've thought about that as a thing. Like,
what that?
does cast could you cast Wish as could another person cast Wish and the effect be I'd like so and so to cast. That's very DM dependent. I would probably allow that as an option,
Yeah,
but of course then you would need to roll to see if you could cast Wish. But then you'd be like, wouldn't they just trade back and forth? I think what I would probably do, because eventually you would trade back and forth until both of you make the roll is what you would do,
well, so
and then both
okay,
of you would come back.
so you cast Wish to let Orkira cast Wish again.
Right.
Does she
Say I
then
fail.
well, so my question is, does she then just get the opportunity to
Right.
cast Wish, or does she have to roll again to see if she gets the opportunity to cast? Like, does that give
That's
her
probably
the
a better solution to let them roll again. I think that
Okay.
would be a yeah. Because if you just because I was just thinking through that when I said I would normally allow it, and then I thought through the consequences of it. And again, if I so you can I cast Wish to make so that your character can cast Wish again. Well, I roll and now I can't cast Wish again. So you cast Wish to do that for me. And we just trade back and forth until we both succeed and can cast Wish again
Yeah. Yeah.
if it automatically works. But I think your solution of you can roll a second time is a really good one.
That being said, we both get the chance to do that once in a day because then both of us have now cast Wish and done a spell that is not an 8th level or lower, and now we suffer all the consequences.
There's that too, but you get
Yeah.
a little bit of downtime, and just eventually you get it to
Just,
work.
just several days of downtime. Yeah. But that is, I never even thought about that. Let's see. Oh, geez, trying to read has been hard. Malika Darkwell, I've been sitting here confused, just walked in on the counterspell chit chat. Well, welcome. Thank you. I have little experience in D&D and just started running 5th edition last year. Hey, welcome. Thank you. But I think it's the 2014 version. Both versions are good. And before that, when I was younger, I played 2nd edition, and I'm starting to play in 2nd edition with my cousin, and that's going to take place in Ravenloft. Yeah, nice. You know what D&D needs? Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you want it to have it, then it's not wrong. You do it. Because I don't know if this exists, but imagine if the silence from Doctor Who was in D&D. Is the silence? That's not the Weeping Angels.
That's just a false. That's just a false Hydra. I know that doesn't exist actually as a thing.
Okay.
So I'm personally I don't watch Doctor Who, but I know what the silence is. I'm pretty sure, and they're creatures that when you look at them, you can see them and you know they're there, but as soon as you look away, you forget they exist.
Oh yeah,
That's
interesting.
really that's really. I mean, the concept has already been done with the false Hydra. I know that's not official, but
But
that's as
that's not
close
so.
to
Yeah, but yeah, the False Hydra hasn't been. At least it's not in 5th edition D&D, and
right.
I
It's not
don't
official, but the
remember it in
concept.
4th. Yeah.
I'm saying is the concept is out there for people to use if they want to already. I think if you want to do that in your game, look up the false Hydra
Yeah.
and then don't use it because
And then
I'm
forget
sorry.
about it.
And then look away from it and forget it exists because the false Hydra is. I feel like I don't. I personally don't feel like I have the experience as a DM, and I have a lot of experience as a DM, but I don't feel like I personally have the experience as a DM to make the false Hydra work. It's just gaslighting your players. Is
It's a role playing challenge for sure.
yeah,
You'd probably have to mechanically do it in a way that isn't true to the idea of look away and you
yeah.
forget it. There'd probably have
Well,
to be like a
yeah,
curse or a something going on that is a
yeah,
tangible thing that could be tracked so that you don't gaslight people.
yeah,
It's a.
yeah. I'd be like, this town has never had a mayor. Well, we met the mayor 6 sessions ago, and it was, what are you talking about? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
there's no mayor in this town. And
Yep.
then, like but if you do that, you're doing it wrong, right?
Or you
Hey,
you
well,
make it something smaller. It's that,
well,
everybody forgets that there is a specific part of the park.
right. I think of it like this. Once your players have spotted that inconsistency, drop the act.
Yeah.
You've done it. Now you've done it. You've created the situation that you were hoping to create. If the problem comes, and I said it I don't think I have the experience. I'm already thinking of ways to try and make it work, but you don't. That they say, but we met the mayor 6 episodes ago. You don't go, that's not true, and move on and gaslight your players. You you know you let them know from your tone that they're probably correct, but something's going on, and now they start investigating and now they start working towards it. If you just Yeah, that's why I think it requires experience from the DM that not a lot of DMs actually have. I think you've got to really think about how you're going to approach it and
Yeah.
what your opportunity to stop playing to stop trying to fool your characters. There's got to be a point where you stop trying to fool your characters. I firmly believe it's true.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. I think there's two things to keep in mind. One is your players have to know that you as the DM are never intentionally lying to them. That this isn't an adversarial relationship. You can't do false hydra if they think that this is player versus DM, because they have to trust that when you tell them what's in the room that you're not in, because if they think you're intentionally leaving something out just a boogeyman, then it won't work. So they have to trust that that what you say is true, but what an NPC says and what happens, but that characters can freaking lie all over the place. And I think the other thing that happens is related to when you say you have to drop the act. I think the other part of the false hydra that can make it scary and fun as a horror thing is it's that something's going on, nobody seems to remember, and then when they have that realization, that's when the monster goes, now it's a hunter, and now it's coming after you, and now it is.
Oh, I like that.
And now it turns
the minute
into
the minute that the characters break the spell, like however, they suddenly remember that the thing exists. It knows where they are and it's coming.
Yep. And now it is this, and no one else in the town can still see it. So you have that moment of turning, looking out to the park, and where people are just sitting there enjoying some popcorn on this gorgeous day as this horrible eldritch monster is charging through, like maybe killing people along the way, but nobody knows. Nobody sees it as it is charging towards you. So that's how you have that two-part.
Yeah.
I think that's what you do. We've got questions to repost. Thank you, Cassius. Let me a question to repost from Cassius. If the magician had a PC, who would it be?
A PC? What does that mean?
I'm guessing like if the magician was playing D&D, catfish is a spell. Like if the magician was playing D&D, who would the magician play? That's an interesting question. Mull on that for a second. If the special people in players and books get associated books, are there semi-special people who just have associated bookmarks? Or do they get like
associated pamphlets?
Yes, they get like a chapbook.
So you're an eldritch abomination in the dreams. And here's how you handle it.
There you go. There you go. I think that's, yep.
I want clarification on the PC quest. What does that mean? Do they mean
okay. Cassie's 335. If the magician was being played by someone, if you had to cast the magician.
Huh. Well, I wasn't thinking too much about. So we're talking about.
You're gonna be better at this. I'm so bad at doing the casting thing because I just don't know. Like the Oscars are tonight, right? I don't know actors.
Willem Dafoe.
Green Goblin?
No, not Green Goblin. Well, yeah, he played the Green Goblin.
But
he plays a lot of different characters with a lot of range.
Oh, I'm sure. I
think he could handle the nervous sort of energy that the magician brings to the table pretty easily.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know he's got a huge range. That was just one of the few things I know he's done.
I'm something of a scientist myself. That's the voice I'm going to be doing for my Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, actually. I'm going to do a Willem Dafoe voice. It's right. It's that you guys may notice every once in a while. If you guys completely blindside me, I have two voices. One is that's what we're doing now, huh? And some country voice, which is usually like, so that's the way it's going to be, all right. I usually will default to one of those two.
We've all got those that we fall back on. And then my problem has become, because I was that forever DM for a very long time, I have now played enough characters in long-term campaigns that I've used some of those voices, and so I can't use them anymore. Yeah. My the Dragonborn Orkira, she was this voice, which was for a very long time my gravelly voice for older people.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore.
I one regret I have for this D&D campaign that you guys are in right now is that I made the Brescian culture French,
Yeah.
which means that I have to periodically try to do a French accent, which is one of the hardest ones for me to do. It goes all over the but
But once again, it's not French. It's
it's
Brescian.
true. Yeah, I get to be like, it's made up. That's the reason why that my accent's failing. That it's definitely not because I'm bad at this. Um,
Nope.
but
You are the DM, and this is your world, and so whatever you say goes.
yeah, it was really useful though when Dominique, because Katie was doing a pretty good French accent, so I could bounce. And usually when it came up where I needed to do one of those characters, I was bouncing off of Katie anyway, so it helped.
Yeah.
'Cause I could do that, but when I have to just come up with it on its own, I'm like, wait, shit. Okay. I don't even have an anchor. Like usually there's like an anchor phrase for stuff. Like when I want to do the Willem Dafoe voice, I will do the I'm something of a scientist myself.
So
Um
so I knew going into this with two people from the South that doing a lot Southern accent, I was gonna be in trouble. Uh, but I had the experience a little while ago of being in a show in where it's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Velvet Lodge, which was a show I did with Goblin Katie. It was a horror game. It was 7 episodes. Came out like a year and a half ago. Um, I came into it, and the character that I was playing, much like Dominique, was pretending to be somebody else. And so I started kind of with a same version of that Southern accent, except a little more exaggerated. And I tried to do a good job. Like I intentionally tried to do a good job, but I also like I'm sure I was doing a bad job. So when it came time for me to drop the accent because I got found out who I really was, I made sure at some point to say, I'm surprised that you didn't figure it out sooner because of my horrible accent. Um, and I got nervous at one point when the show was airing because that reveal was supposed to. I had kind of expected it to happen towards the end of the first. No. Oh, I can't see names. I'm so Tharda. Mark Meer was not the DM of that. I know what you're thinking of. That was the. Although Mark Meer is awesome, and I would have loved if Mark Meer had been our DM. Lucia Vespila was our DM. It was Velvet Lodge. Mark Meer did a Call of Cthulhu game. Same production company did both, and it was everybody in the same location. It was a very similar production. Yeah, you know what? Totally understandable because our DM was also in that game, so there's a lot of crossover. Um, my my other D4 showing, yeah. So the whole I was supposed to. I figured I'd get found out at the end of the first episode, and I didn't, and it made it like all the way to the end of the second episode before it got found out. So there were comments left on like the first and second episode about like because like this was set in like a parallel-ish Earth, so like our world, but not quite our world. So it was supposed to be a Southern accent. So there were a couple of people who were just like, she's doing like her acting is real good, and we like her as a character, but her accent's really not that good. And I'm like,
Let me tell you a story because people do not know what these accents sound like. They think they do,
mm-hmm.
right? It's and there's a caveat to this, but I so on my YouTube channel sometimes I'll do a character that has a deep Southern accent. I know what a Southern accent sounds like. If you listen to me sometimes when I get particularly excited, you can feel it, you can hear it come out a little bit. Um, and sometimes I have like a very twinge of it naturally, I think, in my normal speaking voice, but it can be hard for some people to detect who are from down here for sure. But yeah, I know what a Southern accent sounds like, so I'll do a Southern accented character, and people will be like, "I can't believe you're doing such a fake Southern accent." And I'm like, no, that's the sound. That's the sound of Jethro, the guy I lived next to for 5 years. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's also why I eventually decided again I was gonna heavily include a Cajun accent into the game, and the Cajun accent to the untrained ear, people who aren't haven't heard it before, sounds fake.
Yeah.
Like a good Cajun accent sounds fake. And I was like thinking about it from a show perspective, and just being like, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with people telling me that my accent's wrong. Cause like, one, it's not my natural accent. So it might actually be wrong. But also, people don't know what an actual Cajun accent sounds like. Deadpool and versus Wolverine has Channing Tatum do a Cajun accent that is extremely accurate to certain parts of Louisiana. Not
He
all parts, because
he's
Cajun
from
accents,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a number of different Cajun accents, but to a particular part of Louisiana, and every comment under every video about it is like, I can't believe he's doing such a ridiculously stupid accent. That's a fake accent, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna leave the Cajun out. I don't need that kind of hassle.
And you're talking about with the Cajun accent, yeah, different parts of Louisiana and all of
Yeah.
that. And you're talking about just Louisiana. We're saying Southern, and
Hmm.
Southern is like Texas, Louisiana,
There's
Georgia. Like
yeah,
it's Southern is huge.
and I live in central rural Alabama. There are people here who talk with just a slight accent, just a tiniest bit of accent, and there are people who you would not understand what they're trying to tell you that live up in the mountains, okay? It's all over the place.
Yeah,
And the like a Savannah Southern accent is a complete like which is kind of closer to what you're doing for furloughs
that's
is
where I'm drawing it from
yeah,
is because I
The
can't do
Savannah
yeah
Southern, like yeah, the
the
Savannah, the
genteel
Southern,
kind of
yeah,
accent. Yeah,
is completely different. And like the accent of someone who lives in literally Atlanta is it's the same state.
yeah,
The accent difference is immense to that point. Much less from say uh northern Florida, because southern Florida doesn't really have a southern accent all that much. But northern Florida versus say Oklahoma, which has a southern accent too,
yeah.
even though it's basically in the Midwest. It's all over the place, and they're different, and nobody knows what they're supposed to sound like.
Yeah. I mean, and
There
then
are
you
bad accents, but most of the time when someone calls out a bad accent, it's not a bad accent. Sorry, you were about to say something.
yeah. No, and I was going to say there's the other side of that going. So we went Louisiana, all right, tiny little thing. And then there's the South, which is just a
Yeah.
wide variety. And then if you want the wide variety in a tiny little thing. So my family's from New York City. And how dare you even think that someone from the Bronx is going to sound like someone from the Upper West Side? And then Jersey. Don't, how dare you, Jersey? I'm going to slap you upside the head if you even think. So now I am not from New York. I am
Yeah.
100% like New York
Yeah.
City because I'm from New York, but I'm enough of a New Yorker when I say I'm not from New York, I'm not from New York City. I'm from Buffalo. I'm essentially from the Midwest. I'm almost Canadian, but my parents are both grew up in New York City, like Jersey, New York City area. They are hardcore New York City people. My mother, my ma, when she talks to my family over the phone, like they've lived in Buffalo long enough that they've adopted the Midwestern style of
Yeah.
talking. It takes all of 3 minutes before she's talking like this, and then that's what she sounds like because that's what she's talked about for her entire life. Is she's got that accent. So I've picked it up by proxy, and you just fall right
The way
into
you
it.
said proxy just then, that was pretty funny.
I mean, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, it's one of those things. And so it's accents are funny. There's a guy on YouTube that I lose his name every single time, and you can find him. He did for Wired a whole series on accents in movies and where he talks about all kinds of different accents and how it's done. And what I liked about it when he did the movie stuff is he's very clear about how like when actors get it wrong, it's usually because they just are not given enough time to prepare because accents are
Yeah.
hard. And he goes into specifics in a way that's really interesting to listen to. And then he has a whole series on just the United States, like going through the United States about how there's all these very specific regional accents. Someone in the chat help me with his name because it drives me bonkers. I'm old and I've lost things. You'll find him. But yeah, accents are fun, and I feel grateful that I get a chance to explore my lack of experience and training in accents in a world and where I'm not doing a Southern accent. What are you talking about? I'm
Hivernian.
I'm Hivernian. This is a perfect Hivernian accent. I actually don't have an accent. Well, I don't know what you're the one with the accent.
Yeah, you're the one with the accent. I don't know what you're talking about. I've just been modeling Fro off of whatever I hear you say, to be honest with you.
Well, and Fro was basically the same thing. He was a little bit lower because guy, but otherwise that's yeah. I guess the accurate thing to say, because Fro came first before Fairlos. Fairlos is slightly higher, but they're both big giant blocks of tabaxi, so higher is relative.
What did you feel? Actually, that reminds me, something I could talk about here. How do you feel about the fact that Fro is going on his own adventures in this game, even though it was a character created for a different game?
I love it. I mean, we had talked about that when I was like, I could put these two characters together and that could be fun. And then we had talked about it because I knew, all right, if I'm going to tie these two characters together, it's very reasonable for me to think that he's going to show up, or at the very least be referenced. So yeah, I love it that he's gone off and done his own thing. And yeah, like I was like, here you go. Here he is. Just like the only difference between him as a backstory character and any other backstory character that is in any other NPC backstory is he has a stat block. I mean, really.
What I've done now, because also you guys haven't talked about it recently too much, but we've got Charles Moriarty, who you guys adopted. We've got Fro, who kind of came part and parcel with Furlos.
Yeah.
And we have Frog and Wizard Hat. And all three of those guys are off on their own ship right now doing stuff. So I don't have to manage them completely in front of the camera.
Which is great. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, you want there to be enough NPCs around for there to be people to go to talk to in a rich world, but you don't want more than one at a time.
Yeah. And it is nice though to be like, I always say this, I like to have characters available that come in and out of the players' lives that you know that they've been doing something off screen.
Yeah.
Because it does make the world feel lived in more than it would be otherwise. But also, you got to be careful with that. I've given that advice before, and then afterwards been like, oh, but I know some people are going to take that the wrong way and think that it's okay to DMPC, because like they'll bring in like, aha, you guys were all going to die, but I'm here to save you.
I mean, yeah, in general, it's one of those you don't want to DNPC.
Yeah.
But it's always a balancing act because you never know. You never know, and you always just kind of have to try to do the right thing. And the reason I'm laughing is because the first campaign I ran for my podcast, my party consistently adopted people and brought them along on adventures. And so what I made sure of was that they were, when it was like, okay, they've made decent arguments for them to come along for whatever reason.
Right. I
made the stat blocks into something that was completely different from what they were. So there was no overlap, and a support version of that. So, like within the first 3 or 4 episodes, they brought one of the knights that was in the town who the purpose of this character was to give them the information to go to a place. And they basically were just like, no, you're coming with us to show us the place. And they had good reason. Like, I couldn't deny it. So I'm like, all right, I'll come with you. I'll show you the place. So I'm like, okay, I need to stat block. So they had a barbarian, a wizard, a cleric, and a ranger who had a bear. So I made this knight who was basically just a tank to be with the barbarian. And so that way, when they got into fights, all she did was kind of just stand there and take hits so that the party still had to do things. And all she knew was where the thing was. Once there was a cave they were going to. Once they went inside, she didn't know any more than the party. And so every once in a while, they turned to her and she'd go, oh. It happened, they got to Waterdeep, and I'd created a bar and tavern that had a proprietor that, for whatever reason, he was an older guy, and I gave him a backstory that he had once been a monk somewhere. And Ed's like, that solitary life wasn't for me. So I came and made a bar. They dragged him off on an adventure.
It happens so much.
It happens so
every
much.
game I've ever ran, which I think it means that you're making good NPCs. I really do. I think you're making interesting,
Yeah.
deep NPCs, or else the players would. That's not always true. Sometimes they just think it's a funny little guy.
Yeah.
That's that's another possibility. But oftentimes it means you're making, and even if that's true, even if it's just a funny little guy, you've made an NPC that the players like.
It's a funny one. Yeah. So yeah, so so I think it turns into, it's okay when they come along, but yeah, the DMPC turns into, I think you've done an excellent job of that too. They're there to be useful, but not in a way that is, they couldn't have done this themselves, right?
Right.
Like, I think the only time that I've done slightly more than that is in the couple of times that I've run games for people where they don't have a healer. I will send along a level 1 cleric. I will send along an alchemist with some healing potions, just to make sure that, if no one wants to be the healer, I will make sure that they're not penalized because no one wanted to be the healer. And in that case, once again, it's support, right?
And I will say, for the audience's sake, because we are talking about DM advice here, really.
Yeah.
Listen to your players also. Like, you want to be on the go. It's a very natural urge, even very good DMs might want to accidentally do, where they get overly invested in a character they've created and they want him to be important. Be very vigilant against that, but also listen to your players when it seems like they would like the character you created, that NPC you created, to get involved, because they're asking, like, they're telling you what they want. Listen to what your want and try to give it to them if you can, if it's reasonable. Don't let that vigilance against the DMPC be a barrier to fun, because that's literally the whole point of trying to avoid that, is to keep it from, keep yourself from spoiling the fun. If the players are like, we need you to come with us and help us, just like all of the things Lauren was talking about in multiple instances, if the players are like, we need you to come with us, we need you to help us, we need a healer, or any of those instances, listen. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. And then it's more challenging because you want to walk that line of like making them a still a useful and interesting character without taking over the spotlight. But
for sure, regardless of what your players ask and whatever, you're always looking for that opportunity to pull away and get that character out of the less involved, at the very least.
Or if not, like, so my Friday stream, we've got an NPC in our group who has been with us from the beginning, who is coming with us because she is innately tied to the quest that we're on, the thing that we're trying to find, and it has made sense for her to come along with us along the way, and she is useful in a fight, but she's several levels below us. So we don't have to protect her, but she's not going to be killing anything for us. So she's at just that, like, we're level 8 and she's like level 4 or 5, which is great. And she fills a little bit of a role of we're able to go to her and have some of those discussions when things are tense within the group, so that, we can have those those we don't want to talk with each other, we can go talk with her. Like, I don't want it to make it sound like we don't get along with each other. Like, we get along great, but every once in a while you want to have, other time. So yeah, like it can be a challenge to try to navigate that DMPC when they're in there on the long road.
Yeah. With Kara, I've kind of got it in my head that I think you guys probably will keep him around for a while. And if that's the case, I needed to figure out what he's going to do because he is a high level character. Like,
Mhm.
we've clearly made it clear that he is a high level wizard. So I was just like, all right, here's the rule: no damaging leveled spells. Like, start working on ways to handicap your character. Plus, he's nervous all the time. He's scared. Pirates come to attack. He's going down below decks and he's not coming back up.
Well, and I love that because like when I was talking about I made all of my NPCs that came along, they're defenders. They're support because no one wants to do an escort mission, but nobody minds if the person who comes along can defend themselves. So if he's coming along and he can defend himself in the boat and then we can focus on like the fight, none of us are going to be pissed off that how dare you take over defending the boat? Nah, we're fine. I think players only get a little agita when the focus of battles is being
Yeah.
taken over, and the focus of battles is almost never the defending the NPC.
We've had in this game a lot less. So it's been a little easier to manage because in this game we've only had like 3 combats. Is it 3 maybe?
We've had
And
more
one of
than
those
that, but yeah.
one of those was a training one at the school. Because I'm trying to think. You had the pirate one. That was one combat in the
Mm,
very first not it was like session 3 or 4. We
yeah.
had the training at the thing, and you fought the puppets on the ship. Is there another one I'm missing?
Puppets on the ship. We had a couple of fights on the island. On the isle, on the isle,
Well, yeah, that was you fought the pirates at the end of at the Isle of
on
Dreams.
the Isle of Dreams. We had
Where did you
the zombie fight.
That's right.
We had the
That was a
zombie
4. Okay,
fight.
so that's 4.
I feel like we had more fights.
I think it might just be those 4, but I think you caught one that I
There haven't
missed.
whatever the number is. You're right in
Perhaps was it like
your
24 or 23 or something like
yeah.
that?
You're right in that there's been way more talking than there has been combat.
Yeah, which helps, and I get in that too, where like I want to know the answer to the question. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where that has helped a lot because it doesn't matter if the NPCs are around you all the time
Yeah.
because there's no need to worry about them drawing focus. They just shut up when I feel like you guys are having a conversation that doesn't involve them, and then when combat comes, it's not a problem. Um, and a lot of that has just been you guys avoiding combat because you're very talky and you're very I would argue all of you are to some degree cerebral players who like to think things through as much as possible and want to avoid conflict despite the fact that Furlos would probably love to bash a few heads every once in a while. But yeah, tend to avoid conflict in a good way. When there's bad conflict avoidance and then there's good conflict avoidance. And in the case where you're in a D&D game, conflict's going to keep coming up.
Yeah.
And if you find ways to dodge it, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
actually pretty good.
I agree. I think the other reason that I'm in a way excited about him coming along is for Essequa's sake, because he's a different kind of wizard with a different kind of skill set. But I know as a DM, one of my one of the things I fail at consistently is offering the opportunity for my wizards to have access to scrolls. And so having him there with a whole spell book of spells that essentially they can have wizard time and don't do wizard things because she won't have access to the school all the time. Like I saw her eyes light up when the two of you started talking about like, ooh, we can talk to each other and she can learn and I can learn. And then also he has access to stuff that she wouldn't have access to. So there's not that overlap again. So I
Yeah,
think.
and also there's a thing like the cloak ship spell that he's been working on, which is just a modification of the invisibility spell to be bigger, but it only works on people because the invisibility spell doesn't work on objects; it works on people. And he's like, "Wait, you can briefly make the ship into a person? That that changes everything."
Yep.
I've also been working with the idea, and this was something that I think it was Katie that came to me originally with it, and that was that Katie does detect thoughts a lot, right?
Yeah.
But that's very isolating because Katie's the only one who gets that information. So she was kind of wondering, is there a way to let other people hear what I'm hearing with detect thoughts? And I've been thinking like long and hard about it, and this came up with the scry spell, and I was like, spells that don't normally have an upcast ability, upcast it by one level, and you can share your experience with other people. They're just viewing. It's not in any way overpowered to do that, and it's useful for the players to do what they need to do with the thing. So that's why he was able to do that with Scry. It can work. I would imagine eventually could work with detect thoughts, and there's probably a few other things that it would work with too.
I like that a lot. I can't remember offhand. Rary's telepathic bond. What level is that?
I feel like that's like 4 or 5. That's easy to find out.
Yeah. I know it's not 2 or 3. Um, I like where you're going. I like with the upcast it and you can do some other cool things with it. My thought went in a different direction, probably
It
because
is 5.
it is 5. Okay, so that's probably too high. Because my thought was just like, oh, cast Rary's telepathic
That
bond,
was the
and then
original thought.
cast yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
have
the
a group
original
call.
thought. And I was like, but that's like a 5th level spell. So I'm like, I don't think that would.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
that's why I went
And
down the
then
path. I'm like, that seems like a long way of getting around,
it's a
a
heavy
expensive
lift.
way of getting around it.
Yeah. But yeah, just saying like upcast it by one level, and now you can include other people into the viewing part of the spell. Like you still are the only one who controls it. Like everything is still going through you.
Hmm.
But this also it in a way it'll help reduce the amount of anyway. So here's what just the audience, because especially we're doing a show, here's what the audience already saw happened. Now I need to tell it to the other people and explain it to them like that.
Yeah.
It's just this condenses our timeline in a way that I don't feel has any like there's no overpoweredness to it. I don't feel.
There is one thing.
Oh yeah, hit me.
Well, so if we're hearing the thoughts at the same time that she is, now there is zero wait time on us being able to react to things that we are hearing at the same
Yes,
time.
yes. Which is the reason why you're right that there is some benefit to that one specifically. I was thinking about Scry, where I don't believe there's really anything
No,
to
I
Scry. Yeah,
100% that one.
yeah.
Detect
But
thoughts, there will be
detect
that.
thoughts, yeah, there is that, and it's also to the sense of like it would also need to prevent you from being able to hear the thoughts of the other people in the thing, because otherwise you're gonna get a feedback loop. You just hear nothing but a microphone screech,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, and that's not gonna work. But yeah, like that's a limitation. So whilst you can hear other people, you can't hear the other people who are in the room that you're including in the spell that listen. So there's a trade-off slightly to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, no, I didn't. I actually hadn't given that too strong of consideration. But if it had come up in game, I don't really think that would have been too big of a deal. To be like, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you guys get to react immediately to this threat because you just noticed it.
That being
Yeah, I've been thinking about stuff like that, and that you have bringing a high level magic. I was hoping you guys would get back to school. You could talk to the teachers and do these same sorts of things. Now you're bringing a high level magic teacher along with you on your ship, so now these things can be done while you're in transit.
well, and we're gonna go back to the school at least
For
for
sure.
tonight. So there will
Yeah.
be the one night, and then we'll
I literally put that
literally
at the
ship
bottom of
back
the
off.
I literally put that at the bottom of the session summary. It's let's see here. Uh and the scholar would also like to sleep in her own bed at least once before heading back out. This is something that definitely came up.
I think I remember reading that in prep for today, and then Fairless in the back of my head was just like, anywhere I put my head is my bed. I don't know what she's talking about.
Uh
There you go,
Fro
differences.
Fro and Charles Moriarty and Frog and a Wizard Hat and one other person who I haven't decided yet are already out, and as soon as your guys are done with Fro, we'll be heading immediately to take some food over and be heroes because that's what they all want to be.
Nice.
Um,
So not Elizabeth.
no, I don't think Elizabeth will be coming along after this. They're friends, but they need some space.
That's fair. That's fair.
Trying to think of what would be a reasonable reaction to their conversation where essentially um fucking Charles was trying to force a romantic relationship while he himself is aromantic
Mm,
and ace, and it just was uncomfortable for everybody.
yeah.
They parted on good terms after he came to that kind of conclusion. Yeah, I gave him a whole fucking arc in the Feywild that's just entirely in my mind, but trying to think of how they react after that. That's literally DMing to the audience, just coming up with entire arcs inside your own mind that maybe no one ever gets to hear or see about. But yeah. So I don't think Elizabeth and him are going to be as close as they were during this trip. But yeah, I'm gonna think of who the fourth person is. Who else have you guys tried to abduct? Got to put somebody else out of your reach.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anyone else offhand.
I can't think of
I
anyone else offhand either.
then again, coming back to Elizabeth, totally makes sense that like, all right, they spent that year in the Feywild. Charles had to go discover themselves. Things got awkward. They figured out they became friends. She's going to stay behind. They're going to spend a little bit of time apart. Maybe he goes and does this run. They have their first time being an adventurer. They're apart for a little bit, have a little bit of space, and now get to come back together slightly more on fresher terms, and they can resume a friendship. So who knows? Maybe she joins back up with that crew after a couple months or something. But in the meanwhile, who else was on the crew? Well, no, Abelina.
Abelina, but she's not. She literally ratted you guys out almost immediately.
Yeah, she
Um,
doesn't have the constitution to do that kind of thing.
yeah, there's other people at school. In fact, one of Charles's best friends is he's got a goblin friend who's probably I think probably the easiest and most simple choice. But yeah, no, there's all sorts of. I remember when I was first. This was a learning experience for me. I remember when I first told you guys that you're going to need a crew other than your players.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, this will be a perfect, stupidly, this will be a perfect opportunity for the players to go out and meet some of the other NPCs at the school that they haven't met yet. And you guys did exactly what was the most reasonable course of action. You only talked to the people you'd already talked to.
I think
Yeah.
I
Which
think
is
it was
perfectly reasonable.
be,
Perfectly reasonable.
because of the secrecy level, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
And
okay
I was like,
because now we had a deeper understanding of those characters. So
yeah. And also to some degree, that's why almost felt like because I knew from the list of people you guys were selecting from, I was like, well, the teacher's not going to go.
yeah,
Like, period. He's just not going to go. Abelina absolutely will not go. And then you only
that was
had
yeah.
four other possible options out of the people that you needed. And I was like, well, shit. They don't go talk to anybody else. They are literally being real. Because these two, they have six options, and I know two of them will say no.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lesson, and that's that I think if I want you guys to, I mean, if want you guys to interact with somebody, I need to put them in front of you. Just giving you incentive to go seek them out is not good enough in and of itself. I need to put them in front of you for in some way to get you to actually go. If you want to, if I want you to meet an NPC, I need to introduce them to you. And
Maybe.
every play group's different. And that's
Yeah.
not a bad or a good thing. I think, and it may come down to your characters. Like there's a lot of focus on the secrecy of this.
There's two things. I think
Yeah.
that's a big one. We're in a position where we're all being real cautious about who we tell of anything, and so there is an impetus to not be overtly friendly to anybody because
Yep.
eventually now they're in a position where they could learn something that they shouldn't know. But then also there are two of the four characters who are not necessarily extroverts. Like both Essequa and Fairlos are both like
Yeah.
homebodies.
Yeah.
Like
No.
they don't mind talking with people. They're not like shy about anything, but both of us are like happy to just stand there and be wallflowers or, talk to the people that we know.
And
Uh
while Rivulet and Dominic are very social characters, the way their socialness comes out in some ways is very different than what you would expect because Rivulet is, again, extremely cerebral, overthinks. I wouldn't say overthinks, but that's the best closest word I can come to for this. Tends to overthink every interaction
yeah.
that she has, and so that limits her a lot. And Dominique is just a mischievous little guy,
Now,
constantly up to mischief.
well, and on top of that, she, up until now, has also had a lot she's needed
Yeah.
to guard. She had her own ball of
Yep.
secrets. Now, she still has those secrets, but I think now that she's taken on being Tallulah and being someone different, I wonder if that will free her up a little bit because now she doesn't have to pretend to be someone she's not, that is someone else. She doesn't have to take
Yeah.
on someone else's persona. She doesn't have to be someone who is being hunted by people, so being careful about who she is. This third person she can build from
Yeah.
scratch and can be a little more free about that kind of thing. So, we
Yeah.
might be able to encourage that part of it, and she can be our front face person. Go be extroverted. There you go.
I've always intended for I want to say Dominique Tallulah's arc to be first because it's the simplest and easiest for me to get my head around as a concept,
Mm-hmm.
and that's overthrow the evil empire, rebel alliance.
Yeah.
Super easy, right? Like that's so easy to do as a story. And it can be done very, very well. It can be done very, very poorly. We'll find out how I do it, but
How
it's
we do it.
doable.
It is a team
Yeah,
effort.
yeah. After that, man, it could get complicated because I think we've positioned you as captain of a ship, but man, I've always found Furlos's long term, like, I try to examine every character and kind of get a good sense of what their long term wants and needs are. Furlos is a very short term type of character.
Yeah,
She
I've not
really,
given you a lot, I will admit. We should talk about that a
she,
little bit more. Yeah.
well, I mean, but the character is the character, so that's fair too. But like that character really wants to think about today, maybe tomorrow, and then
Mm-hmm.
eh, let other people handle the other days. Is sort of the vibe I get off of her. I really, I mean, like
Well, this is the
the
first time in a very long time
yeah,
that she's had more than her brother.
that's fair. That's absolutely fair. I think it's one of those things where it's like if it were up to me to build an arc, it'd probably be one where like it's authority and power is thrust upon her and she doesn't want it as a character, but realizes a responsibility. So I've actually been working on this is actually something I've been working on with regards to y'all's poems.
Mm-hmm.
So spoiler alert, it's not a spoiler alert really all that much, but um your poems are all meant to be paradoxical. um I call them a paradoxical prophecy. And what it means is that what because you guys are touched by narrative magic, you're supposed to have character development. So you're the patient storm. Ferlos is stubborn. She's holding in a lot. I mean, I'm not going to say I think anger. She's holding in a little bit of anger all of the time. She's ready to, that's the patient storm. That's the whole concept behind it. And then it's paradoxical because that's who she is now. And this type of prophecy is supposed to tell that she changes over time into the last line, heart holding hidden hope. Not that she's all of those things at once, but rather she starts as the patient storm. There is a thunderous, glorious horn, and then heart holding hidden hope. It's a progress,
Yeah.
narrative, character development.
Well, I've liked that because, like, one of the reasons she's got, like you said, it's not, she doesn't have these long-term goals because
Yeah.
it's been her and her brother. It's been, yeah, it's just, she's been enjoying doing what she's been doing. Then she went to the school. She suddenly had, like, I want to be a navigator. I want to learn how to do this being on the water thing. I enjoy it. So then it became a 4-year plan. Suddenly going to school. Well, now we're at the end of the 4-year plan, and so now the plan is I've got these other people that I like. They're my friends, and there's shit going on, and so now I want to make sure that they're safe through all of that. But it's been kind of the one thing after another, one thing after another, one thing after another. There isn't like the life plan. There isn't like the life
Well,
goal. So
here's the thing with Furloughs that it really like that I see. I'm gonna, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is how I've seen this character. Furloughs defines too much of herself by her value in protecting other people.
oh yeah.
She doesn't it isn't that she doesn't have long-term goals, because she does have long-term goals, but those long-term goals are protect other people and let them achieve their long-term goals.
Hmm. Yeah. I
And
think
that's what she's got to come. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think yes, but she's at least got a little bit of self-esteem about her own um this is going to sound weird. Like yes, her she's protecting her friends, she's protecting her crew, she's protecting the ship,
Yeah.
she's protecting the world, whatever it is. But she does have a lot of self-confidence and she places a lot of value in her own uh abilities, right?
Yeah.
Like, and she doesn't necessarily take it too personally when things go wrong. Like, I think the one thing I'm trying to be a little careful of is it can be hard when you're a support, because she is a support character, but she's also the patient storm, being the like waiting to explode kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to stand, she's not going to attack, she's waiting for the right moment. And then she's in your face with a hammer because she's not protecting from the back. She's not protecting next to you. She's protecting by getting in the way. So, like, how she protects, I think, is the thing that is the most important to her. How she is, like, I think. Does any of that make sense? I feel like I just talked in a circle.
Absolutely does. No,
Yeah.
no, it absolutely does. When it comes to Furloughs, though, now we talk about her backstory, but like I always imagined in her backstory that she was probably pretty protective of her town, helps
Yes.
fight off threats and all these other things.
Yeah. Both
So
her
she
and her
goes
brother.
from
Yeah.
yeah, she goes from that. But when she's working with her brother on the ocean to begin with, she's protective of her brother. Of course she's protective of her brother. She's protective of her brother right now. And now she's protective of her crew. That's Furlough's defining feature. And if I were building a character arc for Furloughs, it would be not that she's, because that kind of person is often doesn't have self-confidence, but that's not Furloughs. Furloughs certainly has self-confidence.
Yeah.
The person who only defines themselves as their value to other people. I said that, and it still, I do believe it applies, but it implies something about Furloughs that isn't true, which is a lack of self-confidence.
Yeah.
That's not true. But my character development path for her would be to become more, I don't want to say selfish, but I think a little bit more selfish actually is probably weirdly a positive character development for Furloughs.
Yeah.
And the easiest, simplest way for me to do that is to make her a pirate. I feel. And I know your brother would be so enthusiastic and entertained by the idea of Furloughs becoming a pirate, to a certain degree. And I feel like that's the path. Like if it were up to me, and again, we need to talk because obviously your input's much more valuable than what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. It was like Pirate Queen Furloughs, because there's a struggle right now, and like thinking about the way Furloughs wants to protect people, seeing that the power struggle is causing harm and needs to be stopped, and eventually coming to the conclusion, hopefully, that the best way to stop it is just, how do you stop people from killing each other and killing innocent people? Become their boss.
Be the person who directs people.
Yeah. Like, these are the rules. This is the new pirate code as written by Furloughs.
I'll think about it. I think you're 100% right that, yeah, she needs to have a moment where she puts herself first. I think selfish
Yeah.
is a good way of putting it, but like if we're
It's
trying to
it's a
frame it in
weird
a
word, but
positive,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
not wrong. But
Yeah.
like, she needs to put herself first for
Mhm.
once. And so finding
The right opportunity.
something, yeah, something in where it's because she has in little ways, but it's always been still for the betterment of like, yeah, I'm gonna go learn how to be the navigator on a ship so I can better protect the ship. Yeah, I'm gonna go be on this. I'm gonna be the captain of this crew because I know I can help protect the crew. I'm gonna, I know I'm the best for the job.
See, that instinct right there is why I think Pirate Queen is the right way to go, because it's the exact it's the same progress. It's the I yeah, these people are doing stuff and they're up to mischief. The best way to handle it is for me to be in charge.
Maybe I'll have to
Yeah.
think about it because I do wonder if her. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it off air. We'll have to talk about it off
Probably.
air.
I've given you some stuff to think about, I think.
Yeah. I like where this is going. I
Yeah.
have thoughts about pirates. I have thoughts about a couple of other things though, and so we
Hmm.
will see. But that is for discussions for another time because we've talked for 2 hours, and so we should
I was about
probably
to ask, yeah.
yeah.
Do we have any pressing questions from chat before we go?
Let me
We
take.
can maybe answer
I'll
real
take a
quick.
quick look. Why don't you go through our credits one
Ah,
more time
yes.
while I do this?
Yeah, scroll. Cartography by Shane Peku. Cartography by Shane Peku Sci-Fi. Maps by Luke Stratton. Maps by Eightfold Paper. Music by Tabletop Audio. Character tokens by Greek46. Custom tokens by Shane Peku Tokens. Overlay art by Packstream. Custom world map by Freckle Sketches. Logo by Luke McKay. Thank you to our moderators, Billet and Strike Redkite. And if you're still looking, I have a game on Start Playing, and it will be running every Tuesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, whatever that is for your own time zones. And I hope to see you over there. It's about a town that has been stolen by its inhabitants so they wouldn't get drafted into the Dwarven army. They flew it away.
I
It's called
mean,
the
if you
Sky
gotta,
High City.
yeah, if you gotta steal something, there's one question we can end, which I think is actually kind of a fun question to end on.
Gotcha.
For sorry, I'm having a hard time reading the red text, which has nothing to do with this wonderful person asking the question. This is me and my old eyes. I have a problem reading the text. Mankara Darkwell wants to know question. When is it appropriate to hand out magic items to players? Or is there a limit to how many they should have, or both? Um, I will preface
Ooh,
this
let's
by
see.
saying I don't think that there is a wrong or right answer to this, but everybody's
Yeah,
going to
it's
have
very
opinions.
different. I
Yeah.
was about to say, well, I bet we have different opinions, but neither one of us is going to be wrong or right. I'm curious what you think first.
Um, so when is it appropriate? When it sounds fun. Uh, it I think the real answer is it depends on what the magic item is because magic items is a giant range. If you're talking about my favorite magic item is the alchemy jug because it is ridiculous. And what the alchemy jug does is just creates a bunch of liquids from water and oil and beer to mayonnaise. It if a creative player gets a hold of it, they can do some ridiculous things with it. But when you're talking about like a power level of a magic item, you're not breaking the game by giving someone an alchemy jug. That kind of magic item, you don't have to attune to it. Like you can just give that to a level 1 party. You can give that to a level 20 party. There's a whole bunch, especially in the wondrous category, that are flavor items that are going to do something fun that will reward players if usually when they do something creative with it. Uh, Most of those, anytime, anywhere, like just hand them out like candy. Those are fun. When you start to get into things that affect numbers, when they're going to boost stats, when they're going to boost abilities, then start looking at numbers. Even then though, like there's
What's a
no
plus one? I
I think it's not as important what you give to a player as far as like give a +3 great sword to your fighter. I don't think it matters as much if they're level 2. Oh, gee, she gave them a +3 greatsword. As much as you want to make sure the other people in the party also have some
Very
cool
true.
magic thing. So no one feels left out. So maybe you give the +3 sword to the fighter, and now your wizard gets like some cool scrolls, and your bard gets like, whatever. So yeah, I think it's more about when you get into something that's going to affect stats, when it comes to the numbers on the page, or the abilities that they have, that the only thing that you should be concerned about is, do all of my players feel like they're getting cool stuff? Otherwise, candy, give them out, have fun.
I mean, there's no right answer to this question,
Yeah.
period. But like we look at because first of all, what an item's like rarity is, do never use that as your guide at all. It's a very loose guide, but it could be, but don't use it as your guide for like, is it okay at level 3 to give somebody uncommon items? No. At level 3, I'm usually very comfortable giving, and I start everybody at level 3 now. But at level 3, I'm very comfortable giving people +1 stuff. That a Bloodwell vial for a sorcerer, or a +1 sword for a paladin, or whatever the thing is that they're going to need. Or maybe they don't want a weapon, maybe they want a +1 shield, whatever. At that point, I'm perfectly comfortable doing that. And before that, probably depending, I give in every game I've ever run, there's been a custom magic item given to the players at the very beginning that allows me to do all sorts of fun things to make sure that their character both fits what they want and kind of fits what I would hope for them to be able to do. Like if like somebody's playing a character, your character actually might be an example of this. I can't remember if it is or isn't, but
Probably
has
my armor.
disadvantage on yeah, it
Yep.
has disadvantage on stealth. I really like it when the characters sneak around in my games. I really like it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at your armor and go, hey, would you be okay if I were to modify? And no, almost never will they say no. But are you okay? And was this a deliberate choice? Then we'll keep it. But I'd like to make it so you don't have disadvantage on stealth checks. Are you okay with that? And that's something you can do with a custom magic item. Not just that, but you can give people like you're not homebrewing their species, their class, or anything like that. With a magic, you're allowed in any D&D to do whatever the heck you want to with a custom magic item. There are rules for creating custom magic items, but you can create them on your own as well. And you can do so many things with it. You see a character that, they're stuck at level 4, they've already taken their ASI, and their primary skill is still a 15 for some reason. Their primary attack stat is a 15. You go, well, this custom magic item boosts that by +1. So now they feel better. That's going to make them feel better in combat. Don't just give random magic items out. Give the magic items that make sense for the characters out. And definitely check with your players and make sure, like we were just talking about, maybe somebody was like, no, I want to be clumsy. I want to be not very stealthy character. And you go, okay, well then we'll keep it the way it is. Check with your players, communicate. Trust me, if you ask, your players will tell you what they want to, if you ask. And sometimes even if you don't ask. But listen, if they tell you without you asking. What were you about to say?
I'll say, sometimes your players will say, I just random surprise me, and that's okay.
Yep.
And I'll go back to the wondrous item thing, because I do agree, unless your players, even if your players are like, sure, whatever, surprise me. If there's no paladin in your group and you give them a holy avenger, even if someone in your group is like, surprise me, everyone's gonna go, eh. So that's where the I keep saying them wondrous items. It's not that that's not like a classification like the rare, very
Yeah,
rare, blah, blah, blah. They're
that's a slot.
literally, it's literally this classification of like, it's random. They're so
Yeah.
wild, and they do all these random things. Those are also my favorite magic items for when I want to have a like little, here's a treasure chest full of like 5 random magic items. None of them are specific for a character. I've rolled on a magic item table-ish type of thing. And then the players can decide, Are they all cool and they want to keep them? Are none of them cool? You know, it's just kind of a cool little thing. Maybe they sell them. Maybe they keep 4 of them and one of them is like, let's see if there's anybody in town who would like this. And now I got a plot hook kind of thing. So yeah, like if you get those players who go, I don't know, look, Wonders items can always be super fun.
Yeah.
The other thing, if you're unsure, consumables. Consumables
That's
are
true.
always great if you want to give someone something super powerful, but you're like, I don't want to make it unbalanced. Give them a 7th level spell scroll that's a one-time use. My suggestion on that, make a, and this is not in any of the books, so you got to homebrew this like a tiny little bit. Give it a timer. Make it, you get a potion that'll give somebody haste when they drink it. So you can use it one time. But it's been sitting in this chest for years, and you can see you got to use it in like the next 3 days. Because otherwise, and I speak from experience, there are a lot of players who are like, a haste potion, I'm going to put it in my bag for just the right time to use it. And then the end of the campaign comes and they go, I've had this haste potion in my bag for the entire campaign and I never used it.
My approach is very much what I was talking about earlier, is that I will focus on your character, look at your character's abilities and say, what can I give you that makes you better? And if it doesn't exist, I'll make it exist. A great example would be Furlos. We could talk about your character, because forget the armor thing, which I think we did do actually, but forget the armor thing. I'm looking at your character and I'm like, you don't really get, I mean, you get some okay thunder and lightning spells, but you don't get the big one. You don't get lightning bolt.
Yeah.
So, like, you have a Tempest cleric in your party, you don't even have to do what I did. Just give them a wand of lightning bolts. Yeah, it's a rare item, but you will make that player so much happier and more effective in combat just by doing that.
Yeah.
And you know they have it, by the way. Let's be clear. You're not going to be surprised when combat happens, and you're not going to line a bunch of enemies up and whatever. By the way, sometimes just line your a random aside, line your characters up or put them in clusters sometimes if they have fireballs. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, look at what your characters need, and if the magic item exists that you can give them, that's the easy way to do it. And if it doesn't exist, make something up and ask them. What do you feel like? I listen, or at least I like to think I listen to what the characters like feel like. Oh man, I used my action to summon this thing, and now I can't do anything else with my turn. That sucks. Like, they won't say that, but they'll be like, I already used my action. I can't do anything else. I guess I passed my turn. You think about it and you're like, well, what if we just made it so that you could do that thing without using your action once? And, you know, make your players happy. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm gonna offer 2 last little things. One is kind of a reiteration, because I think a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, you gotta be careful about magic items," you're gonna break the game, you're gonna break this, you're gonna break that, and this goes back to the only thing I really caution is that you don't let one player feel more overpowered than the others. I think in general, players don't want to feel more powerful than other players. I don't want to feel like I'm dominating the game. I want all of us to have fun together.
Generally a player that does is a problem player.
Exactly. Most of the time, I want to be unique, but I want all of us to be unique and in the same vein. So if you do find that, I've given everybody magic items, but I whoopsied and player A's is way more powerful than everybody else's, just give everybody else's a little tiny boost, because you as the DM can always make things more deadly. The DM can always increase the stakes. So don't try to take things away. It's easier to give stuff and even the playing field than it is to be like, I whoopsied, let me take it away. And the other thing I'm going to say, if you want to watch the most ridiculous version of this, and I don't recommend you do this, but if you want to watch the most ridiculous version, on Critical Role right now, and once again, if you don't do this because it's a lot of hours, they're doing a mini series that Brennan Lee Mulligan is running. I think they're on episode 4 this week. That's called Divergence. in where they just started, and it's only like 4 or 5 episodes. They started as level 0 characters. They just recently, all of them got to level 1. He's given them all like legendary magic items. Like literally a god dropped a legendary magic item on one of them when they were still level 0 character. So it's kind of ridiculous, but they're having so much fun with it. Now, these are people who have super lots of experience playing and performing and doing this kind of thing.
It's also a short series.
It's a short series.
That
And
changes the calculus considerably.
oh, sure. But like if you want to see how much fun you can have with it even when it is really overbalanced and not really working well, go take a look. It's just super fun.
And my advice, simplified down, are 2 points. Listen to your players and think it through. Look, DMing is work sometimes.
Yeah.
Just think it through. Just take like 15 seconds and think about potential consequences. Probably a little bit longer if you got more than 15 seconds. But just listen to your players and think it through. That's it. I think if you do that, any magic item is fine.
But give them the alchemy jug.
Yeah. And don't give them boots of flying. I actually personally don't care, but man, I've heard so many DMs get like it's a uncommon magic item. So they're like, oh well, it's uncommon. Let's give them an uncommon magic item. Here, boots of flying. Wait, they get 4 hours of flight a day? Oh no, that ruins so much. That's literally just think it through. Think it through. Look at the item. Is it a good idea or not a good idea? That's the only thing to worry about on my end of things.
Go have fun.
Yeah. I think you should probably cover anything you wanted to cover before we go.
Give them the alchemy jug.
Okay. Well,
That's
in
it.
that case, thank you very much for watching.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week. Peace and try not to die.
Bye.